I go when I think that you think that you're starting it, but oh god,
We can go now.
I wish that was included.
Now, brown cow.
Do I go when
Unique.
you say go?
New York.
Okay. New York.
Welcome, everybody, to the Alfalfa podcast. We are four entrepreneur and investor friends seeking the edge in money and meaning, and we're glad you're here. We're Eric Johansson, Armand Asadi, Steven Cesaro. I am Nick Urbani. Hello to the chat, by the way. We got Adam in there.
What's good?
Bandits in there, as always. Mr. Miz?
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
Mr.
Mr. YMZ.
What's up?
Mr. YMZ.
Yeah.
or maybe Mr. Ims.
Adam.
Maybe Mr. Mizzy, though.
No,
Bandit, are you in the Discord? We don't know. We have questions.
no, he's not
Yeah,
in
we
the
have
Discord.
questions.
Okay.
Kind of missing out, brother.
We need you in the
Kinda
Discord,
missing
Bandit.
out.
Either way, we're
A
glad
lot
you're
smarter
here
than
now.
we are, that's for sure.
So today we're covering a few things. One is this carry trade that Steven has marketed as a potential trade of the decade. Pretty
The trade
high
of the
bar.
decade.
Pretty high bar to
Dude,
live
don't
up
clickbait
to.
me. All
I-
right, bro?
He gave us a
Might
little
be
tease. I
clickbait.
kind of like
Legit
it.
bait.
Clickbait?
Might be clickbait.
It's legit.
Might be
bait.
legit bait.
Okay.
What else? We're going through some car buying alpha. We're going to also talk about, there's people who have ideas about how to create an AI startup. What kind of team do you need? What kind of specifically development engineering team you might need if you have one of these dreams on your
Wish we
idea
had
board?
someone we could lean on for that.
I wish
Damn.
there was someone here that knew that answer.
Damn.
There's already too much structure. I don't like all this structure.
Yeah, and we got some real estate topics
Suffocating me.
to go through. But before we get into it, you can support the pod and have some fun along with us by donating. If you go to streamlabs.com/alfalfapod, use the PayPal donation button. Any donations $9 or greater, your comment shows up on the screen. So a little fun there. There's also a monthly donation to select if you would like. Another way you can support us is just share an episode to your friend. If you have any Mexican friends that also want to long the peso, you might want to send them last week's episode. We're going to do a little recap of that because there's been some more talks in the Discord. And then, you could check us out on all the platforms. All the links are at alfalfapod.com.
I added the support one to the alfalfapod.com.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so that
Yeah.
link's in there. It's in the YouTube description as well. Speaking of Mexico again, we have another Mexican-themed beverage today.
Yes, we got the mother of all mezcals.
Oh, this is your
No.
S tier?
No, it's just...
Did
it's
you
called-
bring this?
Madre.
It's just called Madre.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you were knowingly trolling me?
No, it's called Madre.
No, you. Never mind.
Okay, yes. So this is... I thought about not getting mezcal this week, and I tried so hard, and then I buckled, and I
Well,
went
we're
to
glad
It
you
mezcal.
always
did.
slaps, dude.
Yeah, it just slaps. It's just like... So this is an Espadín and Quiche. 100% Maguey, young, Joven, Mezcal Artesanal. I like this brand. I think it's great. Good bang for the buck. It's about, depending on the liquor store, like $50 to $60. And
Can you
I
tell me
think you get a
the
lot of value.
tasting notes, please?
Tasting notes? Too early to tell. Let's see how this goes. It's more like, how do I act after a couple ounces notes? So let's see.
Okay.
I will reiterate, I love that mezcal does not give you as bad of a hangover as everything else. And
It is nice.
It sounds
It
like
is nice.
It sounds like bro science. You sure about that?
Well, I mean, either way, I still do the Zbiotics, which thank God. But I used to, before Zbiotics, try to only drink mezcal when I was going to drink more than a couple drinks because, in my experience, anecdotally, it gave me way less of a hangover. Because people say that about tequila, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think you experience the same thing with mezcal.
Whiskey has what are they called? Like congeners or something? I may have just
know.
completely made that word up, but
Also
the stuff
bro
that
science.
makes it
Did
kind
you tell them about Zbiotics already?
No.
Did I miss
Bad.
that? Oh,
No,
okay.
let's get into it.
gives you hangover. Not Zbiotics.
The stuff in
The
scotch.
stuff in scotch and whiskey. Yeah.
What is it called again?
I want to say congeners, but I could have completely just made that word up.
Do you guys ever run into this thing
I'm
where
willing to
you-
put myself
you know
out there
a
on the
word
pod
really
so many
well,
times and just
You know a word
Totally a
really
moron.
well that you read often, but you've never said it out loud? I run into that all the time. And then do you go to Google and go, how do you pronounce this? Or how do you solve that?
Or you just tell people we'll rend as vows somewhere.
Rendus vows.
Yeah, rend as vows. We'll rend as vows.
Oh, man.
All right, let's give a shout out to our sponsor. Thank you, Zbiotics, for sponsoring this episode and the podcast as a whole. Go to zbiotics.com/alfalfa. Get 15% off your first purchase. Use alfalfa code at checkout Did everyone take their Z-Biotics before this episode? I didn't see if
Yes,
everyone
thank
did.
you for
We're
the
good.
reminder. Yes,
did.
Just did.
Armand, did you?
I did.
Okay, good boy.
Yes.
Good boy.
Yes, I'm ready.
so-
It's also my brother's birthday, so I'm extra ready.
Oh, we're extra
'Cause
ready because
we're
yeah,
extra
we're after
ready.
this.
Double
we're-
down.
We're going there, and I think it's going to be a semi-big night. So
We'll see.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it tame, but they party like they're 23, and I'm ready for it.
We're ready for it now.
Ready for it.
Yeah, so Z-Biotics you take before you drink. It's a pre-alcohol probiotic. Breaks down the toxins that alcohol creates, specifically called acetaldehyde. I know my girlfriend was Googling that late night search, being like, "Do you know why alcohol makes you feel like shit?" And
You're like, "Well, actually,
I'm
I
like,
do."
Actually, I do know that answer. Yeah, I
like-
mean, we've it's been some of the best alpha we shared. You guys have heard it several times before. The four of us do it before this podcast. We also use it on the weekends. I used it before a concert.
Looks like Matt took it before his bachelor party last weekend.
Oh,
Saved his life.
It was actually a lifesaver.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, Matt.
yeah, and then like I said, mentioned before, if you guys want to have Zach, the CEO, on the podcast, let us know. I think we could
tweet
probably
it.
set that up.
Can we tweet it? At
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Z-Biotics?
What's his Twitter handle?
I don't know. We got
Yeah.
to figure that out.
Uh-oh.
And yeah, so go to zbiotics.com/alfalfa for the 15% off. Use the code alfalfa at checkout, and you'll be good to go. And then once you use it, hop in the Discord. Let us know how it worked for you guys, how you like it. Share the alpha with the friends.
Wow, he
Wow,
signed up.
Matt
Matt signed up for a monthly subscription. My conviction is that
High conviction. Respect.
My barber says he's pushed like at least 25 people onto it. He's like, dude, every person that gets in this chair drinks. And I tell them all about Z-Biotics. It's been 2 weeks since I saw him. And I was like, that's amazing, man. Did you remember to say the Alfalfa code? And he was like, fuck.
Oh, no.
my God.
Oh,
No,
no.
he's
My
missing
God,
it.
you bastard.
They're getting
They
rug
missed
pulled on-
15%.
Get the little booze
Come on,
cards.
man.
No, but going forward, he's going to use the code.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Great.
Gotta
Thanks,
get this to the barbers out
Z-Biotics.
there.
Yeah.
Seem to have
Pump
some,
those numbers, baby.
I know.
some lighting technicalities here in the studio.
We'll be back on.
I think we're all
in a
right.
moment.
All right.
All right,
so,
it might be a little dark for a bit,
um,
but we'll push
I
through.
did want to recap a few
Yeah,
things
we need it
from
on.
from last episode. So we talked a lot about credit card alpha, and we shared some points specific alpha. But do you remember the username in the Discord?
I can't remember anything as a general rule.
Okay.
So
Wow.
Well,
I'm
he
sorry.
shared another hack.
you know who you are.
Talking about Eth Benezer?
No,
No.
he
Talking
wasn't the
about
one who shared
Nicholas?
No.
Nicholas.
Was it?
How did I forget that?
Yeah.
His name is Nicholas.
Nicholas.
in the Discord, and he shared something called the Fold app, and it seems like this is a prepaid debit card that has a little crypto angle. For every dollar you spend, you get 1% back in a Bitcoin allocation, and so that's not the hack. The hack is that you can normally spend with your credit cards as usual, get your credit card points, and then most credit cards allow you to pay off via PayPal.
Yep.
Okay, so you go to pay to PayPal, and then you link this debit card as the source to pay off your credit card. So essentially, you get a little double dip situation
Double
going
dipper.
on.
McGee.
Yeah, you get your credit card points, and then you get the 1% in Bitcoin back when you pay off
And
that
you
credit
could
card.
do what I realized is you could do your normal spend on your normal credit card, pay that off with Fold.
Yep.
You could do the Built card that we talked about last week and pay your rent with it and then pay that off with the Fold card.
Yeah.
So essentially close to 100% of your annual spend can go through the Fold card. So say you spend 100K annually, you get $1,000 in Bitcoin, and then you get the points for the rent, and then you get the points for your spend through like Chase Sapphire.
Yeah.
So you're triple dipping, actually.
Yeah, people
if you
were
will.
in the Discord talking about how they use that to pay off their mortgage. They pay through PayPal,
Yeah.
and because it's a debit card, there's no transaction fee. So
That is serious alpha.
that's
I think
decent.
so. Then I started getting lazy. I was like, all right, $1,000, and like, really, is that worth it? And I was like, you know what,
It's like
$1,000.
$30,000 of Bitcoin someday.
Well, that's exactly where I landed. I was like, $1,000 in
Not
something
financial advice.
today. I'm putting an immediate 10x on it. So you got to think about the future.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to get a little free little lottery ticket.
Yeah.
1% lottery tickets on my spend.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We wanted to bring that up again because, like I said, there's smarter people than us in this community, and they share lots of good stuff in the Discord. So I wanted to share that. And then Eric, you had some fun discussions about longing the Mexican peso. So a few people picked up on this. They had some thoughts on it. They also agreed that, like, in hindsight, that was pretty obvious, and even going forward, it seems like a good trade. And you guys were talking about different ways you could do it, and then you kind of gave some portfolio advice, which is your
Yeah, so
main gig.
So I think like that was your alpha from last week, and I kind of agree, and I think we all agree that Mexico looks strong and the peso looks strong, and how should you best play that? I looked at doing it on my platforms. Like Interactive Brokers is the one that I use that's most international, and I thought for sure I'd be able to get some peso exposure there, and like doing pesos just like the foreign currency is easy, but I wanted to get the bond exposure that you mentioned, like
Right.
that 9% sovereign debt yield. But all I could get there was the US dollar version of the Mexican bond, and those were only yielding on a 5 years, like that's yielding 4 and change,
That's not
4%
gonna
and
cut it.
change. Like it's less than the UST bills. Like, no, I'm not gonna do that. So, it was Ebenezer Scrooge, and one other member in our Discord and on Twitter. We're talking about using EWW, which is a ticker symbol for the Mexican ETF. And I think that's a little more interesting, right? It gives you exposure to like Mexican companies, so that if like you get more of this onshoring going on, and you get like
You said it was a diversified industries in there.
yeah, like any ETF, you get a diversification. But this one was like a little more concentrated than you'd probably think of, because the top 5 companies represented like 50%.
Wait,
of,
and is that ETF denominated in dollars or pesos?
so it's denominated in dollars, but those companies earn pesos.
Cool.
So
So you get the exposure correctly.
you would get the exposure. But like ultimately, the conversation that I kind of want to have here is like, yes, Mexico seems interesting, but like within the framework of like a holistic view, like is that actually interesting to you, or like is like a 10x on Bitcoin or ETH actually interesting? And when you're talking about like deploying your dollars to something, right? Like, is that actually something that is going to get you out of bed? Or like basically where I'm landing now is like, I'm trying to understand who I am better, and who I am is like this guy who was raised in like a traditional finance upbringing, and I'm having to shed like my skin and become like this evolved version of myself, which is like seeing the world through my eyes, not the eyes of the textbook or whatever. And when I see the world through my eyes, what I see is something that we've talked about throughout this podcast. It's like the 3 asset portfolio that Steven first brought it up, but it's T-bills, real estate, and ETH. And I think within that third category, it's like ETH and things that will potentially outperform ETH. So
Right.
I think,
A barbell approach, essentially.
yeah, it's
right?
a barbell approach. And
But there's a cash bucket to it.
I think the cash bucket is nice. You know, that's yielding 5.5% right now. That's
Right
cool.
now.
But I think that sort of like 3 asset barbell, I like it because it's like a one size fits all, in that you can like sort of slide anywhere on that spectrum to fit yourself into that. And I guess what I'm really thinking now, which is hard for me, is like, Steven, you'll like this. Like when you look at like say the S&P 500, or you know the Mexican EWW, or anything like this, my thought now is that all of those investments that everybody loves so much, everybody contributes to these things every fucking 2 weeks when they get their paycheck through their 401k. I think that exists. That allocation exists below the efficient frontier. Like that is actually an inefficient portfolio. That's a bad portfolio, because this 3 asset portfolio actually gives you what you desire. You either desire safety, or you desire growth, or you desire something that's sort of in between. And I think that those 3 assets, like according to the way that your risk profile exists, that's like the best way to design a portfolio.
To just bring this back to make sure I understand. So the deeper question you're asking is like, is playing the Mexican peso fitting into this equation at all whatsoever? And for you personally, given your background, but also I think you're asking it more generally to the community. It's like, where does this fit for you? Where does this fit for me? Is it worth the time? Is the juice worth?
Yeah,
the
you're
squeeze?
putting it in the risk bucket. Like you want
You're assuming
outsized
this
returns.
outperforms.
Yeah, that's what I'm beginning to measure it against, because I think the traditional finance realm
You
would
need
actually
some kind
measure
of benchmark, don't
they would
you?
measure that against the MSCI, like world index, and like it will outperform.
But your benchmark is different.
My benchmark
right?
is it's got to beat ETH, because if you want to put your money into something that's risky,
Is it okay? And it is inherently risky, right? Like risky enough that you would not put this in the bucket of like. I know we're going to talk later about the carry trade and all that. So yeah, I'll leave that.
I was thinking actually it's in a different bucket. I wouldn't put it in these like growth buckets.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking in the cash bucket where you mentioned
what I'm trying to
treasuries.
say.
That's a AAA place to put your cash. This is like a double B place to put your cash with hopefully a little more yield, and maybe there's upside.
That's what I'm saying. Like, can you view it that way?
You
Like,
can, but the issue we have as U.S. citizens is that at least in some of these major trading platforms, we can't buy the government bonds in pesos. And I think maybe Charles Schwab might have it. And so TD Ameritrade is going to convert to Schwab here very shortly. So I'll let you know if in Schwab you can kind of purchase some pesos. Because it was
Wow.
like 4 years back that the Mexican government said, no, we want our government debt available to U.S. citizens, like retail traders. We want it available to them.
I have a Schwab account too. I just didn't even think to look there because I feel like they're the worst one.
Yeah, I would be shocked that
Yeah,
IB
they're-
doesn't have it. We should also mention here that when you're investing, right, it's not about the absolute return. It's about like the Sharpe ratio, right? It's about the return relative
risk.
to how much volatility you
Yeah.
take on. You can always lever up a trade. Like when people trade Forex, like these are tiny movements, right? You're not buying like $1,000 worth of Aussie dollar in your $100,000 account. Like you'd make like $8 on the trade, right?
It's almost like
you
you're a
lever it
protege
up.
of Ray Dalio. This is exactly what he suggests when he gives his all-weather portfolio. He says exactly what you're saying. He's like, if I allocate 25% of my portfolio to T-bills, like I'm leveraging the shit out of that to actually get a great return. So I think you're right.
So, you're a money manager for clients. I'm curious, have you ever taken off, let's call it the CFA hat, and put on your own hat and be like, hey, for you, maybe someone similar age, I actually recommend the barbell approach? Or are you like, well, I'm managing someone else's money here, fiduciary, got
No,
some
I've never
liabilities?
done it. I've never done it, and I actually want to have maybe like a alfalfa conversation one day about like, can I do this? Because I really want to, but like I feel this intense pressure from like just upbringing
Years
and
of
everything.
training and CFA tests.
I can't shed this skin. I want to do what's right for clients, but like that, I think what I'm suggesting here spits in the face of like what everybody else is doing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there is this kind of this like, as a financial advisor, you don't want to. You need to cover your ass to some extent, but sometimes it's, the barbell approach could be the better strategy. And if they're acceptable to that kind of risk and volatility, then they're okay with it, So, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of teetering on the edge myself. Like I've mentioned in past episodes, I'm thinking about.
You said, will you sell your S&P or your stocks for
my
ETH?
indexes, and
So, like, I wanted to actually talk to you about that because I feel like that is the right move. Sell stocks, buy ETH.
yeah. So for me, my personal risk tolerance, I would probably already done it, but like I am responsible for multiple dependents, so I have to like absorb their risk tolerance, right? They're at different age ranges and whatnot, and they have their own different things that they probably wouldn't want to take that much risk with the money we have. So I'm trying to be a little more careful, and so if ETH does have like a little summer, fall, September lull, then in that case, if it falls lower, then the risk adjusted return just keeps getting in the favor of selling it. So I don't know. I'm kind of in this in between, and I'm going to let price kind of dictate when and where to pull the trigger. But yeah, I mean, and you've been on the barbell approach for quite a while. You have some real estate, cash, and then it's just crypto that you obviously actively manage.
Yeah, I don't know if I would like fully agree with it at this point anymore, though, because when we first had that conversation, like AI didn't really exist yet.
Right.
And it's very plausible to me that AI outpaces crypto.
But that, just to be clear, that exists in my third bucket.
Yeah.
It's ETH and things that will outperform ETH.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
the benchmark for me is ETH. It's not S&P, which is what most people use as a benchmark for their growth allocation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just generally in favor of if you're young, like just taking on more risk and more volatility because you have time and
That's the point, right?
yeah. Like you're not gonna really get ahead putting half your portfolio in bonds at the age of 23.
But
You
I
know, it's
think it
just-
even applies to just like even people that are like 50, for instance, like still have a long way to go. Like I think this
Right.
applies way more broadly than we would give it credit for. And I think this is the hardest part I'm struggling with is like nobody else is saying this except for this group here. And it's like, I see it too. I see the light, you guys, but it's like very hard for me to like just completely
and I'd be
change.
curious for people to comment, people watching, people listening, comment on the YouTube video what you guys do. Are you a fully diversified investor, or are you a barbell investor, or are you like a hey, sometimes concentrated bets when with high conviction are the way to go?
This
because
reminds me of something I asked Steven one time that I think we should talk about really briefly. And I think you were just like generally shedding like light on something from the perspective of a trader. So like the normal everyday investor, my question to you is like, Steven, how do you think about allocation? Remember that? We were at like Churchill or something. I was like, so, you want to be this percent in ETH or crypto, this percent in stables, this percent, whatever. And your response, to refresh your memory, was basically just like, I don't overanalyze that. I just simply try to move into assets that I think are the next best asset over a short to medium duration of time, extract the value from those assets, and then move back into the more stable assets. That's what I took away from your response. You're like, I don't sit there and think constructively about allocation. And I think the reason is because you're not a set it and forget it guy. A set it and forget it person is looking to rebalance and have the allocations where they need to be because their main approach is to leave those buckets alone at the allocations that they predetermined. And your response was, I don't do that. I just simply look for the best horse at that given time. But I don't think you do it on a very small time horizon anymore. You're looking on more, well, it depends what we're talking about here. I know you're into some new stuff lately, but yeah, can you like just kind of address that? Because it helps me think about it like a little, it kind of changed my framework a little bit because I think that I've been very structured in like I want a certain percentage of things in my barbell or in my trifecta. But it made me realize like, you know what, like in younger years, it's okay. It's okay to just like follow the next best horse that you have high conviction around, extract the gains as much as possible, and then move back into things that you have more conviction around long term.
I think there's a distinction between whether you're sort of investing passively and you're investing in things that sort of have inherent like beta to like the S&P, like they go up when the market, like the S&P goes up over time, and certain assets go up more when the S&P goes up and more when the S&P goes down, right? But they go up. If you're making like a concentrated bet, say in like the Mexican peso, well, that's not really a passive investment. There's no,
Not at all.
it's not really any like beta.
I don't think I want that
the-
in my portfolio allocation. long
Right.
term.
So if you're passive, you have to be investing in things that go up over time, not like buying.
Over long stretches of
Yeah,
time.
like not buying like copper futures or something. Like
Yeah.
S&P goes up because.
But to argue for it, you could have an allocation of your portfolio that is like you just degenning around. And that's the active piece of your
If that's what you want to do and it's for fun, yeah. But I like generally agree with Warren Buffett's take on this, where he says that, if you're not a professional investor, you spend as little time as possible, and then you use your time to go make more money to go put into the market, as opposed to trying to take a bunch of time out of your day to beat the market if you're not a full-time professional. I just think if you're younger, like it's better to just put your whole portfolio
I've
in
never
like
heard
the
that.
NASDAQ as opposed to buying T-bills, right? Or in the NASDAQ as opposed to buying like even like the S&P, right? I think you want to go after or some EM, emerging market stuff. Like I think you want to go after.
Dude, is there like a middle curve meme for that? That reminds me of one of those where like on both sides, like at the top and bottom of the curve, like they're like over analyzing every single investment move. But like the right thing to do is, well, excuse me, in the middle, they're over analyzing every investment move. And at the bottom and the top, they're just like make more money.
Yeah.
Like that's the key. Make more
Yeah,
money.
I think like that's like a way of saying that he just is a proponent of passive investing in S&P
Sure.
500. Like,
Sure.
The best move for the last couple decades was basically to just like make money and use all of it to buy Apple.
But
And
that's really disheartening.
you would have done
Like,
really well.
like that's, isn't it? I don't know.
That sounds great.
No, I think it's like it's sort of what I'm talking about because like everybody that I sort of like learned from and grew up with would say like you got to be super diversified and whatever. It's like no, actually the best portfolio was owning Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, and like that is not hard to do. A, and B, it wasn't risky. Like it was never risky. And it never felt risky. Like you hold those, like you ever like sweating your ass off? No, it's fine.
So then is ETH the version of that for the future?
For me, it is, and that's
Okay.
like where I'm getting to. It's like
Got it.
that's like
Cool.
And like, I just did a quick search. I didn't know what the data source was, but the Sharpe ratio on the S&P 500 is 0.45. The NASDAQ, it's 0.62. ETH, it's a little over 1. So ETH has a fuck ton of volatility, but it also has the upside. And granted, it's only an asset class that's existed for 7 years. So, take that with what you may. But
Yeah, you want more return for the volatility.
yeah. And
More
if you
return, more return, less volatility. Good.
And you can find these like, big macro turns. I think that's where you can make it even better, where like hopefully you can avoid most of that like 85% drawdown. It's obviously really tough to do, like to be able to understand those things and then to emotionally pull the trigger on them. But if you can do that and understand the turns, then maybe you can pump those numbers up without as much volatility. Where should we go next? I know you want to talk about
Let me
safe
just-
places to put your
Yeah,
cash.
I just want your guys' perspective on this real estate thing, actually.
Okay.
Just because we kind of mentioned the barbell, I figured it apply. So,
Yeah.
like, I've been thinking lately about I don't own any real estate directly in my primary residence. I rent, and we've done a few episodes on real estate and on renting versus buying, and I think they were really great episodes that Nick in particular, you brought a lot of good data to, and we crunched some numbers, and it was really good stuff. But I just want some like basic thoughts on this from you guys, like comparing the idea of buying an investment property versus investing into real estate, limited liability, limited partner opportunities. So I know you have a lot to say about this. I'm sure you've done some sort of like very good analysis on the trade-offs. Can we just like have a little discussion on it?
Yeah, I mean, like the easiest place to go first is as a limited partner. I spend an hour a year. Actually, I could spend 0 hours a year if I didn't actually want to look at the
you
numbers.
just write the check and then the
it's
checks
done.
come
Like
back
the
in.
the work in it is in understanding the asset class you're doing in, understanding the general partner, understanding the deal you're going
so just
into.
to be really specific, like when you get a deal, that email arrives, the total amount of time for you to decide to make that investment is if you were to make that investment is like, be honest.
Couple hours spread over across like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, a few days.
Like I'll read through the whole thing.
Talk
but
to
but,
people, hey,
but I
are
would
you
say
in? Blah, blah, blah.
most of the work is done in understanding how much cash I have, because like understanding the liquidity risk is the biggest one. Like, can
Yeah.
I like not have this cash available? And then second is, did you do your research on the general partner? If you've done all that, then yeah, the
And you
deal
have a
is like,
checklist that you dropped in mailbox money in our Discord of questions to ask. So you're doing it. You're having some conversations. Whereas I think we've talked about that. Whereas to go and buy a property in San Diego right now, like say I'm bullish on Mission Valley
Yeah.
or University Heights. I'm like, I really want to own a spot here.
go buy a duplex.
I want to buy a duplex. It's only going to take me $200,000 to get that done. And I'm going to own this duplex. I'm going to rent out both units. Maybe I'll even live in one of those units one day. But the amount of time to take that first variable for you is just way too significant.
So yeah, that's
to think about buying that property, to get that loan to $69. Who did?
Rectum did.
It's so weird how that's a
Rectum?
popular tipping amount. Why is that?
Son of a jackal.
REITs suck
Because I don't
giant
think you guys
donkey
can
dick.
hear Jordan, so I'll say he said REITs, REITs, suck giant. I have to say this, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I have to say it. He paid good money to say this. Suck giant donkey dick. Rectum's words, not mine.
He is right.
Is he?
He is
Tell
so
me.
right. So okay, you could invest in a.
Thank you, Rectum. We love you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Rectum.
You're
Thank
the
you.
fucking man.
He's right, because most of the benefit that you get from being an actual owner of the real estate rather than an owner like of a share in a REIT, it doesn't pass through you in a REIT. The depreciation doesn't pass down, so you don't get all these like passive losses down on your personal taxes that you could write off against. That's for sure one. But then also think about the REIT. It's literally a pile of money sitting there that they have to invest, and just like a real estate fund, which I'm also not a fan of, they have to deploy that money. It's not like they deploy it like a money
So
manager
it's
in
not
day one.
opportunistic, and they're not finding the best deal. It's just like, I got to deploy this. This is available. I buy it.
Yeah, and the best source of these things suck giant donkey dick is go ask a general partner who has a REIT as an investor. And they'd be like, they'll laugh. They'll be like, this is great. Like their target return is like 6% because
Okay.
they have to deploy so much capital.
Can we
that-
cover some of the other variables too?
Yeah, okay. Okay.
All right, so we got
So
time.
Return on time is one. Let's just talk about return on money.
Okay.
So you will probably return, let's say you're good at this
Yes.
and you do a good job.
Or that you have a good friend who can source
Help you
proper
out.
deals for you. and-
Yeah. So that's one, is that your return will likely be better
on a one-off basis.
on a one-off
When
basis,
you buy it
right?
yourself, yeah.
Yes.
And you, instead of getting a 7% cash on cash return, maybe you'll get like a 13%
Yeah.
cash on cash return. And to set yourself up, you may only need one of these, two of them to go well.
Right.
And you might be able to set up enough passive income for yourself on 2 triplexes or something like that.
Yeah.
And those are your little babies that you manage yourself. Maybe it's the family manages it. The wife helps out, the kids help out at some
Absolutely.
point, and it's like,
Or you spend $150 a month on a property manager and
right.
it's taken care of.
But there are 2 things that come with this. So one is the higher dollar amount. So a lot of these limited partnerships, the minimum is $100K,
Yes.
but like, what's it going to take to buy a duplex?
Yeah,
It's gonna
more than
take
that.
More than that. You need the down payment, and typically in these commercial deals, you need more than 20%. You might have to come with 30% or 25%, and then you need the money to renovate, to actually make the improvements, and then you have to withstand the operating losses while these things are not fully rented. Another thing is these are typically, maybe it's up to a 4-plex. If you have one unit that's down, you're not at 75% occupancy. That sucks.
Yep.
And you might be underwater. So you need to be fully occupied. So there's not that much margin for error. The third thing is that you're kind of
The
geographically.
margin for error is highly centralized onto the one property, onto the one, like, whereas when you're a limited partner in multifamily real estate, like in an apartment complex, the vacancy doesn't affect you individually as severely. Is that
because
is that
it's
a fair
one
way
of
to look at that?
294 doors in an
Right.
apartment
Is
complex.
that a fair way to look at that?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, got it.
And then the other thing is like
What about leverage?
Yes, leverage helps, but let me just mention the geographic thing. Like, you can't really manage this thing. I mean, maybe you could if you really trust the property manager. And in San Diego, there's no such thing as like 10% cash on cash deals. They don't exist in San Diego. Like, you might have like a 4% cash on cash return, and you're really hoping that like San Diego real estate is the best NFT in the world, that like there's no other place to buy this type of real estate, and that it just goes up in value. Okay, the leverage part. Sure, you could take leverage, but you're not going to get the same interest rate that a $100 million multifamily group that has deals with Fannie and Freddie, who can get preferred interest rates to buy a large deal. So you can get leverage, but it may not be the terms in which you get being part of a
But
limited
I
partnership
get that
deal.
leverage. What do you mean?
You'll get leverage. Like, let's say you
What
put
does their
30%
leverage have
down,
to do
you'll
with
get 70% leverage. You'll get 70% to buy the property.
Yeah.
But the rate at which you do it, or the terms, like, is it interest only for 10 years? And what's the rate you get it at? They might get it at a full 1% cheaper, and that pays for their 20 or 25% rip that they take.
There's some economies of scale that they get the advantage of.
Totally.
What about like the benefit? Because I think there are benefits on both sides. What about the benefit of doing it yourself? I think there are some. Like I think one easy one is like liquidity. Like you get to choose when you exit that thing. Like you can sell that whenever you want to, versus you go into an LP situation and you get that money back when they want to sell
at
it.
the market clearing price, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is somewhat more liquid because you get to decide, but real estate isn't always quote unquote liquid at the price you want it at.
But in terms of that argument, Eric, I'm more on the side that whether you do it yourself or do it through these guys, you want to 1031 it either way. So, like, I wouldn't even look at it as like an opportunity for like any liquidity.
You don't even look at the
all.
liquidity as a
it's
benefit.
not even one of my variables.
Even the optionality is not a
No, because
benefit.
like you want to 1031 it. I want to compare the other variables personally, right? It's like,
Well, I think you
where
wanna
do I
compare
get
all
the
of them.
higher return?
Well, higher return is doing it yourself.
Yeah, sure. It'd be blind to just like turn away from that,
So,
like when you need
Let's
it.
call
yeah.
it the biggest benefit of doing it yourself. So when you are an active real estate professional, meaning you spend, I think it's like the threshold is something like 500 hours a year on a property.
Yeah, this one's interesting.
This one's a huge one.
This is big.
Those typical paper losses, like the depreciation. So let's say you buy a $1 million property, it'll depreciate a significant portion of that. And in a typical tax return, you may only write that off against your other investment gains. But when you're an active real estate professional, you can write that depreciation off against all of your income, your salary, your W-2 income,
That's
all of your
nice.
stock gains, like whatever it is.
This is only if you claim this specific.
Which you probably can if you have like a duplex.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
most definitely can. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you especially like if you and your wife are a joint tax filer, you can say like, hey, we contribute a significant amount of time towards this.
It's like 10 hours a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you may, and there's no one else responsible for the work. So I feel like
Totally.
if the IRS came to test you, you could be like, if we don't work on it, the thing
No,
fails.
for sure.
There's also like let's call them gray hat areas where like if you buy furniture for your house, it could probably at some point be furniture for your investment property.
Yeah, now we're talking.
This is what someone else was telling me.
I'm
also,
back.
maintenance, like also just general like maintenance, general landscaping, general expenses. You know,
Yeah, you choose your level of risk there.
degeneracy.
But I think you get where we're going. That like a lot can file under that business of being a real estate
Is
professional.
that a large enough advantage?
It could be like if you have significant W-2 income or significant other income, consulting income, 1099 income.
Okay.
Yeah, that
So do
depreciation
you
might
see
wipe
an-
out
Do
all
you
the
see
taxes.
an argument for being mostly a limited partner, but having one of these
I mean, I'm kind of in when Steven was talking about
for
portfolios.
the benefits that we mainly just described?
Nah, I'm more like just make more money with your main thing, and then this is in the passive thing. Now, let's say we didn't have our business and I was looking for the next thing. Yeah, then maybe take a hack out of it, but it is a little risky for me because am I willing to lock up that money for a 4% cash on cash return? Again, this is because we live in San Diego. I know Tunsky lives in an area where the cash on cash is much more attractive, and for him it makes a lot of sense. And I know he has quite a few properties that he manages himself, and he can take that active real estate professional write down. All I
Should
know
we
is that,
hire Mr. Moneybags to run our real estate fund in like northern Michigan?
I mean, that's also a good way to do it. Like if you have buddies, you could team up with them, but then that test of being an active real estate professional comes a little tougher. Maybe you make some trips out there during the year. So anyway, that's my like input on this. Is it better to own properties yourself, and also be prepared to like have terrible tenants and unclogged toilets, or at least manage construction
I am
projects
a
and
big like time freedom junkie. So yeah, I'm on board with that. I love it's not just time freedom, it's mental space, that you acquire by just
Absolutely.
not having to worry, think, receive the phone call. People say like, well, you can have a property manager deal with it, but the property manager still calls you because they need an answer for almost most situations. Do you approve this new washer? Do you approve this service? Do you need that? Do you want this cleaning? Do you want this termite service? Like, it still is decisions you need to make, and they take up your time, which you would never deal with in your world.
Yeah, if we lived in Reno or Phoenix or Tampa, Florida, I'm trying to think of like good, real estate where there's a good risk return, then maybe.
So like this conversation, I think is really valuable, and I think what I'm seeing here is like an analogy to our rent versus buy conversation many episodes ago, and that one, if we harken back to it, like Nick put forth a very good argument to rent instead of buy, but I think if you were to plug in the numbers, the actuals from like the last 5 years into a rent versus buy, I think the numbers would come back like buy the fuck out of your own home.
Okay,
because
I think I would agree with you that only in those last 3 years do those numbers.
because these conversations get skewed by the returns that we're talking about. Like you're saying, well, which one makes more money? Like, it's hard to project, but like, San Diego real estate is zooming still, and like the people that bought homes are feeling very good.
Yeah, I mean, like, we have a close buddy of ours
Hold
who.
on, Nick's talking shit in the chat.
Yeah, I'm
I gotta
talking shit in
pull
the
my
chat at the
phone
same
out.
time. Now we
that's a
gotta
funny
call it
comment.
out.
Yeah, call it out. That is good.
Of course, my pants wear pants.
Calcium wants to know,
What do you think I
is
am?
Armand's pants wearing pants? There's a colorful stitchery going on Armand's jeans. And I said, he's Persian. That's really the only explanation that you should need.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a
for
fair,
that kind of
that's
gene
a fair
flair.
answer. That's a fair answer.
I want to rip the mask off of Armand. It's actually Kanye under there.
So, where were we?
That's okay. Let's go to dollars.
We go dollars.
Let's go
Yeah.
dollars. Just a quick like I followed your tip that you gave a long time ago, Stephen, about public.com. And I went and looked into that. So like my goal, my outcome for this, just to explain this segment, this idea, I wanted to invest some cash into, whoa, what? Bandit knows some Persian, some Farsi.
Salamati.
Armand.
Hello.
Salamati for
Cheers,
those of you
Bandit.
non-Farsi speakers. I think it's most of you. Means
Good
to your
bet.
health. It's like cheers to
It's
your
a
health.
cheers, yeah.
So, damn, this whole time Bandit speaks Farsi. That's fucking crazy.
Is that Mina in disguise?
Secretly.
She's like, bye, bitches.
He's just calling us out, talking shit. Okay, so I wanted to put some cash into treasury bills, and I was looking at all the different ways that you can do this, right? So you can go to Treasury Direct, you can buy them directly, you can participate in auctions, go direct. You can go secondary through your brokerage. Like, for example, I'm with Fidelity. I like Fidelity. I was looking at how to do this on Fidelity. We can compare the pros and cons. You can go through public.com, which puts you into 6-month treasury bills. But public.com's purpose, if you've never heard of Public, Stephen put me onto this, is like, imagine like a Robinhood-esque sort of like site that makes not trading, but investing like really, really, really brain dead simple. It's just designed for like someone that does not need the complicated like Fidelity actually made buying T-bills really complicated. Like I needed to watch
everybody
multiple.
does.
I needed to watch
Wasn't the
multiple
minimum
YouTube
like
videos.
I don't know, like
Insane.
And the minimum was like 200 of them, so it was a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like your minimum buy was like, I don't know, 20K. Like I couldn't find anything below that level. So I didn't want to put 20K. I just wanted to put some money into T-bills. And even if I did, it was like I'm buying secondary. I'm not buying primary. And then I had to learn like, okay, what's the benefit of the liquidity of secondary versus primary? It was just complicated. Then I go to public.com, and someone in the office too, Kyle, was like, yo, no, Public's the way to do it. Check it out. So I went in and I looked at it, and it's like, it's as simple as like a fucking trade. It's what you want for crypto.
So wait, somebody
It's
in the
like-
office used it too?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
really? That's
Yeah.
funny.
And he was like, $100 minimums, put as much as you want, 5.5%, which is the top end of what you can get in T-bills today. And it's just brain dead simple. You just connect your bank account, send your money, call it a day. Super simple. And then last but not least, there is today just putting cash into Coinbase and earning yield off USDC. I think as of this morning, it was at like 4.4%.
4.6, I think.
Okay, cool. And it's like liquid, which is great.
And
So-
if you have trade triggers for ETH, what they used to only allow you to use USD Cash for your advanced trading trade triggers. If you use Coinbase,
Oh, you can use
USDC
oh,
now.
That's cool.
So basically, you
I
have
like
these
that.
orders out where, like, if ETH hits 1,700 or 1,500, it'll place a buy order, and in the meanwhile,
It's earning the yield.
earning 4.6%.
Oh, that's
So
I
like,
mean,
I have a
that's-
decent amount of
that's pretty cool.
chunk of change in there,
So it
earning
sounds
that.
like maybe that's where you landed. I'm curious where you guys landed with like.
Wait, on
If you
on a
have-
related note, did you see the MakerDAO savings rate?
It's
hit
like 7-8%.
I wanted to bring that
8.5%?
up. 8%.
8%.
I wanted to bring that up because
So-
DAI
Yeah.
yielding 8% on DAI.
Super
Beats
interesting.
all that shit.
A question
But
about
didn't
that.
die?
No.
Negatron.
No,
Okay.
Maker has been one of the strongest coins in crypto for the last
2 months.
2 months after
Yeah.
just being
2
a whipping
months.
boy
G
for.
Senpai is rolling over in his
Well,
grave.
it's different. It's
We had
different
quite a
now.
situation
It's
2
different
months
now.
ago, right?
Wait, so can you clarify? You have to own a separate token, which is like Chai, right? Which is the yield-bearing version of DAI, or no?
I don't think it's hard to access. You don't get it just owning DAI.
Right.
I think you have to get like staked DAI.
Which is why the rate is 8%, because only a small portion of the DAI holders actually choose the interest-bearing part. So
Yeah.
the smaller group of people share in the whole pies. I'm
Like
sure
I'm
it's
one
in
of those
T-bills.
people. I have a bunch of DAI and it's not.
Yeah, so
stake
I
right
looked at
now.
this, but they just increased the rate because it was 3.75 like a couple months ago. I was just looking at this on summer.fi is where you would do this. And, at 3.75, that wasn't compelling enough for me to actually like convert USDC, get into that trade. But at 8, I'm like, well, yeah, now, yeah,
I'm into it.
yeah.
I mean
So
that
that's
gives
one.
me hope. It.
I don't know, doesn't that concern you guys at all? Like there was the days when all of these like stablecoin yields, DeFi yields were like high, and we were you guys were chasing
But I
them.
But
and
no, that doesn't concern me at all. Because you know exactly where the yield comes from. The yield literally comes from Treasury bills, and like there's say like $1 billion in T-bills, but then only 25% of the people stake their DAI to capture that yield, so the rest of the people get this like excess rate. And also, like if you think about it, this
so
is
that's
like a
where it's coming from.
Yeah.
yeah,
that's
this is
why
like a
it's
return
high.
to where it should be. Like the risk-free rate in DeFi shouldn't be lower than the risk-free rate in cash. It makes absolutely no sense. And as long as that's the case, money should just be pouring out, because why the hell would you keep all your money in like online on-chain stablecoins when you could park it in Treasury bills for
Absolutely.
5.5%? So the hope is that this is like kind of like the reinverting of the yield curve per se, and then it starts pulling more money into DeFi. So that's what I'm hopeful about. Anyway, I want to get back to your public
We'll
thing.
just keep going. Like,
I mean, I have a few.
where is the? Do you want
Where's
to hit
the alpha?
public
Where's
a little
the
bit?
where's the risk-free?
I was just
alpha?
Because
curious,
there's variables. There's
um,
liquidity.
Yeah.
There's
a little
ease of
counterparty
use.
risk.
There's counterparty risk. There's I don't know, what are the other variables?
So
like you
I
really
wrote down a few. I looked at what my JP Morgan team has me in. It's VHPXX. It's their JP Morgan money market fund. It's only at 5%. But I found a few ETFs, USFR.
So what I
It's
worry about with ETFs,
5.3%.
I'd love if you have this data, like what the expense ratio is on some of these as well.
Yeah.
Because I started looking at some of these ETFs. You mentioned an ETF as well. I looked at that. I think the expense ratio was like
well, they have to
0.25 or something.
advertise.
No.
There's a metric they have where it
Maybe-
has to
maybe
be.
It's called the SEC
net.
yield. It's
SEC
a net.
yield
Yeah.
is net of fees. So,
Yeah.
so the USFR SEC yield is 5.3%. If you like Vanguard, VMFXX is 5.25%. That's a 7-day SEC yield. So you can just use an ETF if you like.
And frankly,
capture that.
I would always take that that out. Like for somebody who wants passive, like why would you want to continuously roll over these bills that are like on a 1 month, 3 month basis
own
when you
them
could just
directly.
park them in an ETF, set and forget one time. You're gonna sacrifice a couple bips on an annual basis. Like who gives a fuck? Honestly, that's my alpha. But like if you're talking like
Well, I looked into the one, Nick, you mentioned the Darius Dale one. I didn't like it. It was like,
USFR.
yeah, I didn't like it. It was
It's
like
5.3%.
no, I don't think that's the actual return.
No, so were you looking at it in a ticker symbol, looking at the yield?
Yes.
So the yield is different. You have to go to like the the site that owns it. So I think that's a
Yes.
Wisdom Tree ETF. You have to
Yeah.
go to their site, and they will actually show you the distributions.
Because
there's a difference between yield and like yields and maturity.
So
and like
if you
there's
see
all
it,
these
if you see it on like a Yahoo
complex-
Finance or something, it'll show you based on what it's paid over the last 12 months, which is a fluctuating rate. I mean,
Totally.
it's the actuals, but like the rate has gone up over time constantly.
Right.
So like you're calculating it off of like a
This
3%
trailing-
treasury,
Yeah.
3.5,
Yeah.
3.75, but now it's at 5.
So you have to try to be forward-looking, and you get that
Yes.
number
So
where?
You get it on a forward-looking basis.
What I do is I go to the ETF website. I look at their last distribution. I take the distribution divided by the price of the ETF times by 12,
Come on.
and that's your.
That's it. That's
You got to
the,
go and divide?
No. It's there on the site.
I mean, that's
Okay.
the SEC yield
but I
as
like
well.
double
Okay.
check it, make sure is
All
this
right.
real money
But
that
it's
I'm going to get
display-
deposited.
And the SEC yield takes out the fees that you mentioned. So
Okay.
that's
Okay,
that's
cool.
the real return.
The SEC yield. Okay.
Yeah, and remember too, the bond, the fund could have bonds that are like 4% yield in it, and you're like, what the hell? The rate is 5.5. But in the market, like the price of those bonds will drop as like the current rate goes up. So the actual return you get is a combination of your distributions from the coupon, but also that price kind of going back up as it reaches sort of its maturity date. So like this stuff is, it's kind of a lot for like
It's
a
in the
normal
weeds.
person
So
to
the
process.
reason that you like these is because you don't have to worry about maturity, rolling over, all these things.
Yeah, like everything. Like frankly, from your perspective, you're the guy who's always like, you guys are too in the weeds in this finance shit. Like this is too in the weeds. Like
Yeah.
the ETF is the way. Like quick and dirty, that is the way, and it is right. Like that works. That works very well. I think what Nick said is compelling. He's like, you put limit orders and you can earn like a USDC yield for placing a limit order. I like that. I also like this Summer Fi 8% yield on DAI. I think all three of those are kind of right for a certain user.
Why do you not like buying treasury bills directly or on secondary compared to the ETF?
Oh, because the ETF just does it for you, and you pay like a
Just
small
in terms
fraction
of
of
the
one.
on ramp?
No, not
on
even
ramp
the
and the off ramp too. If you want to get rid of it,
because like if you want to have a bunch of these, like you're gonna, it's
Yeah.
like a manual process to like, okay, so I collected it, now I got to redo them again. Let me look up all the QSIPs for every
So the
fucking T
maintenance.
bill. Like
the maintenance.
This isn't a free lunch either. Like imagine you buy 6-month bills, right? And then the Fed panic cuts rates by like 300 points.
Yeah.
And then you need the money 2 months from now. Well, those bills are actually worth less now. You're not going to sell them at par anymore. So
sell them 60 cents on
let
the
me
dollar.
let me put it this way to you.
If you need them.
Let me put it this
Yeah.
way to you. You were just asking Nick why it's better to do an LP investment on a real estate deal.
Right.
His answer was like, it just relieves you of all the burden. My answer is the same, but this one costs like 100x less than his version. Like the ETF version of the T bills is like
Even
10
more
bips.
obvious,
It's like
too.
it's
Yeah.
so cheap that
Interesting.
if you can just offload the entire burden.
And your favorite is what?
Well, I mean, everything that Nick mentioned, they're all the same. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all just buying 1 to 3 month treasuries and rolling them over constantly.
yeah,
I like the short term,
own,
1
I
to 3
own
months.
ETFs for the record. I own short duration bond ETFs. I don't buy actual bonds.
In T bills, not bonds, which is, well, I don't know how far what consider bonds.
yeah,
but
we're
like,
saying the
I don't
same
want to
thing.
go
I'm no-
over
like
a year.
3 to
Yeah.
6 months.
Well,
is
I still
stuff I'm
think there's something interesting going on with public. So, what do you think of public, Stephen?
What do you? I haven't.
Well, yeah,
used
you
it.
were asking me what I.
Yeah,
think
I
of
was
public.
asking. I'm curious. Did you like it? It's like something
did.
I've heard people talk about
did.
glowingly, but I was curious if it actually
Well,
is good.
I think it's a little bit too constraining for me, actually.
you're too advanced.
I mean, I dare I say? I don't know, not in this room, but yeah, for public, yeah, definitely. I felt constrained.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah.
But you would recommend it to like your mom?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. But you're locked into 6-month T-bills.
That's one of the problems. With
It's a
buying
problem.
Bill. But like you
Like,
wait,
why
you
aren't
can't
they,
sell
why
them.
are they putting you in the 3-month ones? No, you're not locked in like in that sense, but to get to earn the yield.
yeah, I'd rather
like-
have 3 months.
Yeah, I'd rather have 3-month. Why didn't they put me in a 3-month?
That's how bonds.
Like I don't
work,
understand.
Man.
Like
You
why
choose
did
them,
no? But
it's
why
choosing
did
the
they
duration.
pick the 6 months?
Who knows?
Simplify
Probably
it
just have
for
the
you.
highest yield.
I don't
keep it
need.
simple.
I prefer the. It doesn't make sense.
There is a question that Rectum brought up. He said, and this brings up a few topics that I want to talk about in future episodes if we could. One is, what do you think a 5.5% treasury will trade at in 12 months for now. So I don't know. Today is an interesting question for him to bring that up because
Yeah.
we hit all-time highs on Treasury yields on the long run, like 30-year, 10-year. I don't know if it hit across the board, and that's a sign of the market potentially being like they could be saying a few things. One, we think inflation is potentially creeping back up, or it could be like a start of a fuck you, U.S. government. Like, we don't think you may be able to pay your bills in the future. It sounds odd to say. So I want to talk about sometime in the future, like,
Oh, I wanted to bring this up too,
Yeah.
because we're all sitting here. We have been sitting here like, wow, 5.5%. That's big number, and I should buy bond because 5.5% is big number, and it is a like big number because we're anchored to like zero basically. But like the thought I had, and this isn't my own thought, a lot of other people have had this thought too, is like, is the U.S. sort of like early stage emerging market economy now? Like in emerging market economies like Mexico, you can get like 13%.
Well, they got 9%. Nick
In a
quoted
bond
on a 5-year.
right? That doesn't mean
yesterday, or
everybody
last
just
week.
puts their money in bonds. That's just the base, like risk-free rate because of inflation and everything. So,
But that's why I like going with the 3-month because it gives you the.
but what I'm
agility.
saying is like I don't like know that people necessarily should just be putting all like. There's a lot of people who are saying this like, look, you can get 5.5% for free by putting all your money in T-bills and don't buy stocks because they're risky. But that's not a good play in a lot of like these EM countries. That's like basically like you are getting eaten away
Yeah,
in
you
real
gotta have a
terms. The
negative
stock
real
market,
return, yeah.
the stock market starts mooning. And like, what have we seen the stock market doing this year?
Mooning.
It's kind of started to moon. Like I'm like trying to process this probability that we are going like early stage emerging market right now. Like we are losing control of the currency.
Like EM stonks have been such dog shit over the last
10 years.
10, 20 years.
But countries like Brazil has been great.
Well, the beginning of this
for the
year
last
is like Japan.
couple of years.
Not relative to U.S. Like,
But Japan was a great one.
underperformance.
That EM fucking scale.
I think Brazil's underperformed U.S. since like early
the
2021.
The bigger question I want to
right?
bring up is
2022.
we've done an episode on financial repression before, in which we talk about that the government's going to have to fund themselves at some point, and because these large government sovereign funds are not buying up T-bills anymore, that China's not buying them, Russia's not going to buy them, who else is going to buy them? And it's either us, the private citizens, or the Federal Reserve. And if we choose not to buy them, then those rates are going to continue to go
high
up,
as fuck. Yeah.
which makes the interest payment for the federal government continue to go up. So at some point, and we did an episode on this about financial repression, they have to solve it somehow. They have to increase taxes, they have to go austerity mode, or they have to find a way to shove bonds or non-yielding cash into banks' balance sheets or our personal balance sheets. And I would like to revisit at some point, because it's not like a 1-year type time horizon. It's more like a 5 to 10 year time horizon. But for this next decade, I think it's, if you're accumulating wealth over this next decade or plan to, like, I think it's an important topic to touch on. I know Ackman shorted the 30-year T-bill because he thinks that's going to go higher.
I don't believe anything Ackman says anymore, to be honest. I think
Yeah,
he's just psyopsing all of us constantly.
He's made some really good fucking bets that have won, and he's made some really bad fucking bets. I don't know. I don't know what to think of him either, but like way before Herbalife, I really liked Ackman, and he's kind
He
of
bombed on that one.
He's kind of dug himself
Oh my
into
God,
a shitty hole.
absolutely. That was
But
crazy.
He was awesome back in the day.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think of this 30-year.
I mean, nobody knows where 30 years is going right now. Like, I know very smart people who I follow who think it's going up, and I know very smart people who think it's going down.
Which is like why I don't want to lock into 30 years. I want to just stay nimble, stay on the short end of the curve, and like basically own with risky shit. I don't want to be risky in bonds. Like I want to just be risky in crypto or things that will beat crypto AI.
Traditional bond investors, like big money managers, are not just in it for the yield. They're in it like it's 5.5%
trading,
now, and the Fed dumps interest rates, and now I got a 30% profit. Plus, I've been collecting yield the whole time. So I don't think we're those type of people. I don't think we're going to play that game.
Yeah, not really. Except for the Coinbase bonds, I liked. Those were awesome. Those are.
I mean, the bull case for buying 30 isn't like, oh, it's that everything else you buy is going to get absolutely wrecked. So that's the thing you can buy where you make money. Like the case for 30-year rates going down and bonds going up, the case for something like TLT going up is that we kind of finally hit the point of delayed impact of all the rate hikes, and a bunch of shit hits the fan, and like crypto goes down and stocks go down and everything goes down.
The bill comes due
except
on
that.
Yeah.
So
I-
that's the case for
For me,
owning
the leading
that.
indicator is like our initial jobless claims going up, our continuing claims going up. I know like temporary work is going down significantly. That's typically a leading indicator of these things. So I don't know. I think that's what you
I mean,
keep
have
an
you
eye on.
have you seen like there's been like a huge TikTok trend of people posting like these grocery pictures from like it was like $100 of groceries in 2020 and then like $100 of groceries in 2023, and it's like
It's
freaking
insane.
gnarly.
It's
Like
actually-
it
it
ain't
is
8%
Hey,
a year.
ridiculous.
honestly, can I ask you guys an honest question? How much do you spend on groceries a month?
Oh fuck! I mean,
A lot.
each trip is like probably 150, 200 bucks
If you
for,
had
for,
to guess,
for like
if
5
you had
days.
to guess,
Oh man,
I'm a house of two.
yeah.
I'm blown away.
You're a house
at
of
how-
3, aren't you?
Oh well, yeah, I guess. Well, one gets fed mostly for free from the boob. So actually, Mushi, yeah, we got to
Yeah,
buy
you
it.
got
Should be
dog.
4.
Yeah, Could be a
I'm
house
not
of
a good
four.
metric because I get like a lot of meal prep and I don't
It's
cook
fine.
a lot.
It's fine. Is it like $1,000?
No, I probably spend like $450, $500 a month on groceries.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's really good actually. I spend a lot,
Mine's
What do you spend?
over $1,000.
so mine's
That's
low.
insane.
I would
Like,
say it's like $1,200.
can you imagine spending like 10 or
And I
12K
couldn't
a
believe it.
year
I
on-
plugged it
on
into
a
Rocket
low
Money.
income?
You know, I just recently like got that app, and I really like the app, by the way. For like, I like Personal Capital, which became Empower, which I think Nick turned me on to, like years ago for just general net worth tracking and seeing your portfolio. But Rocket Money is really good at. Used to be called Truebill. Truebill became
Ah,
Rocket
cool.
Money, and it's really good for just like seeing your budget and all this stuff. But I'm blown away at how much money we spend on food. Albeit we order our food, we Instacart, we get steaks, we do all these crazy things, but still, it's a lot of
Steak
it's a
is
lot.
so
It's a
expensive
lot. No, it is. But
Oh, you
it's-
know what else is
it's
like
crazy.
Fish. Like if you try
Fish
to
is
just
so-
buy
yeah, we do that
like
once a week,
yellowtail
too.
or something, it's like
yeah, we do that once.
it's like
Those things
$600 a
should be expensive,
pound.
though.
My family reminds me like you eat well, Armand. Like
Yeah, you're buying the most
you're
expensive
doing
shit.
good things for yourself. Like of course it's expensive, but like it surprises me back Steven's anecdote that like it is way more than it used to be.
Yeah,
way
people,
more.
people are
than it used
getting
to be.
wrecked, I think, right now, and I think people are racking up credit card debt right now.
Can we address this one, by
it's-
the way? Because like I get fucking, I don't know why I just like laugh and slightly get pissed off when people are like, we just crossed $1 trillion of credit card debt for the first time ever, and people are like, oh my god, like we're gonna fall apart because we crossed $1 trillion, but they don't divide by the denominator, which is like, well, how much cash do households have, and what is that percentage relative to where it was pre-COVID? And it turns out roughly the fucking same. So
The
like
percentage remain the same.
the percentage is the same. So like I know people, like gawk at that stat, but like you
The
should just-
percentages
I forgot I
remains the
haven't
same
made
in like
There is
absolute
another
terms,
person.
but you have to look at you have to look at it in like a very specific subset of the economy, because the problem is that a lot of the savings rate, for example, like savings are massive because the top 5% just stacked so much freaking money that they're basically carrying water for the entire country of savings. But then the other 95, 90, 80%, however much it is like not
Still
saving. Their
barely getting
rent
by.
is going through the moon.
I mean,
Like,
excess
the
savings is
groceries
going
are up.
down for sure. Like that,
Yeah, like
that number is
the trends
continuing.
are reversing. Like
Dude.
I don't think it looks
Full
great.
right turn. That fish the other day, dude. Wow.
What fish?
The fish that Eric made, the sushi.
Oh, speaking of a grocery bill,
Wow,
what was
that
your
was-
grocery bill
God,
for
that
the,
was a right
That
turn.
you hosted
was
a sushi
yeah.
making
Good fish.
party.
That was good fish. Catalina wine mixer fish. What
That
was that called?
Catalina Offshore Products. This
Catalina
is where all the
Offshore Products.
restaurants in San Diego.
This is Alpha if
get
you're ever in
their
San
fish.
Diego.
So like I walk in there,
Dude, that was good.
I walk in there and it like has that overwhelming smell, like you're like in an oyster or something. And I walk in there and they're just like, "What do you need?" I'm like, "I don't know what I'm doing."
Sushi.
Like, yeah, just give me sushi, please. And they're like, "Okay, you want sushi for how many people?" I'm like, "For like 25 people." They're like, oh God. But this place,
How many pounds of salmon did you buy?
we got 5
Dude,
pounds.
Eric's like improvement from roll to roll
I'm like-
was one of the most like staggering improvement curves I've ever seen in my life.
Arigato
His first
gozaimasu.
roll-
I'm ready.
First of all, he had the bandana on. He had the whole shebang. He had his sous chef, or were you the sous chef? I don't
Yeah,
know how you'd
please,
like
dude.
to
I'm
qualify
the
that.
sous chef,
You were
yeah.
the sous chef, but he was like learning how to make rolls. Made the rolls. First one, great. Second one, like, ooh, this is really good. By the time you came out with the third or the fourth one, dude, that was mind blowing.
Okay, so this place.
I felt like I was at like a Zuki level.
Okay, thank you, because I
Yeah.
feel like I'm like ready, and now the idea of going out to sushi to me is
Yeah,
like
you're done, huh?
I'm like, oh, you guys are like way
Yeah.
overcharging for this shit. Because like first thing you notice is when you buy like a pound of salmon, for instance, like when you're rolling in sushi, it stretches out super far because like a roll doesn't have like that much fish in it.
Yeah.
So like a pound of salmon goes days. And this place, I think it was charging like for the salmon that we got, it was probably like $30 a pound. But the ahi tuna was only like $16 a pound.
Really?
And that was like
$16 a
that fresh,
pound
for
That's
that
really
fresh
good.
What?
ahi fillet
Wait,
thing.
I
what?
can't wait to try this
Wait,
place.
what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go there soon. Do
It's
they
like-
do meat too?
And
It's
then we
like
got
half the
yellowtail.
price
Seafood
of.
only.
It's seafood only.
Okay.
Yellowtail was also 30, but the ahi, I was like, dude,
I
I'm
try
gonna
to
like
eat a
buy
lot of
steak,
fish, so-
sear that
16 a
shit. Like,
pound.
so 16 for
You
that.
gotta
and-
eat more fish. Seriously, you gotta eat more fish.
Yeah, Lazy Acres.
Hey.
That's like $58.
Like imagine treating 25 of your friends to like sushi at a restaurant. Like it's literally
Yeah,
a
you
bank
can't-
breaker.
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's just like
Yeah.
So what you're saying is
$250,
the
like-
profit
yeah, it's
margin
not-
on
it's not
sushi
possible.
rolls
Yeah.
is like insane. You're charging like $21 for like
Totally.
the roll.
I mean it's the
It's
labor.
got like a dollar of salmon in it and a bunch of rice.
well, I
and
told you
seaweed.
guys this too afterwards is like the hard part about it is that like you make a little roll and that cuts up to like 8 little sushis. And by the time I like finish a roll, because I'm like new at it, I'm like, oh cool, I finished a roll. I'd like come out and like serve you guys. I would make it like 4 steps away from my station, and then that sushi roll would be gone. And I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta like build another one now. So like it's in the labor of like the quantities are low when you make a sushi roll.
We need to make bigger rolls.
Yeah.
Like, do they have that? Like
Like
an
fucking
extra, like a
PVC
yoga
pipe?
mat, basically,
Wait,
where
you guys haven't
roll
had the
the whole.
sushi burrito before? It's,
what?
It's a sushi roll in the size of a burrito.
Not big enough.
Dude, this is the exact like data I was looking for. I'm curious if other people from the community could also share like how much they spent on groceries or how much their costs have gone up. But like example, family from Decoch, $900 a month for a family of 4, 2 kids in 2021 is now $1,250. Costs have gone up $16,000.
Damn, that's
in
good
the year.
data.
Fixed costs. It's a lot. I'm curious where other people are at. I'm also
It's
curious what the
huge.
trade of the millennium is.
Yeah,
Can we get to that?
Let's get into it.
First
Dude,
it was the
as a-
trade of
as
the
a-
month, then it was the trade of the decade. Now it's the
it's
trade of the millennium.
It's the trade of the millennium. It's the trade of the millennium.
And so you're not fully on this trade. You're like exploring it, and you just
No,
want to
this
chat
is
about
something I saw going around Twitter, and I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention and talk about it. You know, that doesn't make for a very
I've
sexy
been
headline.
waiting. I
Sorry.
don't even know how many minutes. Let's get into it.
All right. I mean, this kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier. I want to actually bring that together because I have like a
Groceries.
theory about I have like a
Okay.
theory about the next
it. Leverage long groceries.
bull market. Jordan, can you pull up that tweet?
Make sure to read it.
We'll read it. We'll read it when it's up there. All right.
Zoom
Wow,
in.
I can't read that at all. But the people, I can TLDR it basically.
you
But
go.
this is from Derivatives Monka. Never know how to pronounce that word actually.
It's like a Belgian beer.
You want to go one more plus?
One more plus.
Can you read that? How's your vision?
Oh, I like that.
I don't think you can read
Oh
that.
wow! Well, he did call it the trade of the century, actually. So I guess
Millennium.
we
It's the millennium.
we undersold it. Okay, so the TLDR is this: when Bitcoin ETF approved, and you have the
Spot
ability,
ETF.
yes, spot ETF,
Yeah.
not this futures nonsense. You have the ability to buy a Bitcoin ETF in your brokerage account. Say Interactive Brokers, which I love because they're a great brokerage account, and they give
One
you
of
a
the
lot
worst
of
UIs I've ever used in my life.
The-
but
horrible
fine.
UI,
worst
horrible
UI.
UI, but they give you a lot of money for a very
Impossible
low
to
rate,
use.
Such good margin.
like unbelievable
No,
margin rates.
You love that, huh?
It's
Yeah.
my favorite.
Yeah, if you like to leverage,
To use.
Yeah,
It's
we don't want
great.
the plebs in here.
Is that actually what it is?
I don't know,
Is
man.
it actually just like a blocker for like everyone else?
It is really like the anti-Robinhood. Like if you buy
completely
an
the
option
opposite.
on Interactive Brokers,
It's one of the
it's
most
like
frustrating
he pulls up this
pieces of
chain. You got to
software I've
expand
ever
this
used.
table of like 69 things. What month? What this? You got to go scroll left. There's like the Vega and the Theta. You go on Robinhood. You're like, what best describes you? And it's like a thing.
YOLO.
I think it's going to go up. I think it's going to go down. You're like, ooh,
You
up.
press buy and it's like confetti everywhere.
Confetti. Like,
I've
how
actually
is
been meaning to talk to you guys.
how
about
is that
Robinhood
legal?
Stock. We can get back to that some other time, but I think that's an undervalued stock. We can come back to that.
Oh my god.
I love I have a story about Interactive. I'll save it for later.
All right. So the TLDR of this
It's
trade.
the Hall of Fame of worst pieces of UI software I've ever seen in my life.
Okay,
Hall of Fame.
we'll let you vent.
Keep
later.
going.
All right. The TLDR of this trade is that you buy the BlackRock, hopefully Bitcoin ETF in your Interactive Brokers account,
Yeah.
and then the full degen version is that you borrow against that collateral in the most depreciating currency available to you on the site. So in the case of Interactive Brokers, this would
Depreciating
probably
over
be,
what period of time?
Well,
how do you begin to even make this trade, like in a like?
Can we talk
like,
time horizon? Just
yeah.
just give us
Yeah.
what the time horizon
I
is.
feel
trade.
scared.
But
even
also
thinking
don't
about
don't
that.
interrupt him because he's like
this is
he's
yeah.
Is it cooking?
I'm still on step one here, for the love of
right,
God.
all right.
Step one, buy ETF. Step two, borrow against it in a
Shit
depreciating currency, a
Yeah.
shit currency. For example, on Interactive Brokers, the shittest currency you can borrow is probably the Turkish lira.
That's a
which
shit currency.
Very
we have
shit.
a chart of which you can queue up next. I don't not yet, but I'm going to show you this chart. It is a spectacular chart. You then use the depreciating currency, which is not only depreciating against the dollar, but likely Bitcoin by an even wider margin, because this is the whole purpose of the reason you bought Bitcoin in the first place, right? And then you use your lira to buy more Bitcoin.
But
So
you
you're
convert it to
basically-
dollars first,
Yeah, you
right?
sell your lira for dollars
Right.
first.
Yes, but you have to do that in order to buy the dollar-denominated BlackRock
Yes.
ETF. But yeah, you're basically borrowing lira against your Bitcoin, selling the lira for dollars, and then buying more.
So it's a leveraged
ETF.
Bitcoin trade, which is the trade of the millennium.
Yeah, you're using depreciating EM currency to buy
Yeah,
more
but-
okay.
Bitcoin.
So the key
Many
is
questions.
Many
Okay.
questions.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, and Jordan, you can queue up the lira chart
Let's look
so
at
we
the
can look
lira.
at what we're going at there.
Okay, when you first make this trade, do you want this trade to be happening in a sort of automated way? Like, how often do you want to be making this trade? Every time you
I mean,
have-
like, according to this chart, you do it as often as you can.
as often as you can.
Yeah, as often as you have money, you would do that trade.
Okay, so this is like the Turkish lira versus the dollar.
That's Turkish
And-
lira against the dollar.
I mean, how do you even begin to
Bro, that's wild. What is the
prophesize
price
What
in-
this looks like going forward, though? Like, what time horizon is that? That's like 30 years, huh? No, what is that?
We went
say?
from $500 to 3 cents in like
what is that?
a few
1981.
decades.
Yeah, lira
91?
sucks, man.
Okay,
That's
Yeah, it
pretty
sucks.
gnarly. I think it's down about 39% in the last year.
so that's
Alone.
33-year chart.
So I think this is an example of a lot of EM currencies, though. It's not just the lira. It's like a lot of EM currencies.
Right, but you
suck.
can't like borrow EM currencies that readily, like that easily.
Right.
You know?
Why?
And, well,
Most
Because they're
brokerage
shit and
firms.
most brokerages don't offer them.
because somebody's footing the bill, and it's usually the counterparty.
So can you just go through the like basics 101 of why borrowing in a shit currency and then buying Bitcoin makes sense? Like, why does that a better trade than just, I don't know, borrowing USD and just levering up Bitcoin?
That's a good question. Like, is it a better trade? So I would say all things being equal, if you were to do this trade, it would be an amazing trade. Like if you could just get free lira or get lira at the same rate you get dollars and then convert those into Bitcoin, you've got this kind of double whammy trade going on where you're borrowing in something that's going to zero. And that's a good thing to borrow in because when you have to pay it back, it's not worth anything, right? Like if you borrowed 1,000 lira 40 years ago, that 1,000 lira is now worth $2 when you have to go
Right.
pay your
Right.
loan
So
back.
Bitcoin remained flat. The price remained flat, but the amount you have to like pay
Or
off that
Bitcoin
debt
went
is
up 10. Say you bought $1,000 of Bitcoin with your lira loan, and then Bitcoin went up to $30K. So now you have $30,000, and then you pay off a $2 loan.
Yeah, you pay
Right.
off 2 sats,
Like,
and
it's-
you're
so
like,
it's-
all good.
So in theory, it sounds super sexy. The problem you run into with this trade is that like the borrow rate for lira is 33%.
All right, this is what I wanted to get into because the counterparty knows that like this is a shit currency, so they're going to charge you quite a bit of interest to lend you out in this currency.
Because they're playing that same game. They're like, who's
Quite
the,
a bit,
who's the
right?
DGen that's going to fucking borrow this
And your
dog shit
interest
thing?
needs to win, right? So
Well, yeah, you have to beat the interest rate. Yeah.
with
the
not just the
depreciation.
So-
right, with the appreciation plus the interest.
So with Bitcoin being equal, let's say Bitcoin price doesn't move, you need the lira price to go down more on an annual basis than the interest rate
that you're borrowing at.
you're borrowing
Correct.
at to be positive.
Yeah.
But the idea of this trade is that Bitcoin will go up over some years and the lira will go down and you'll be plus in the money, not just playing like a
and
currency
I'm sure you've
exchange
thought about
change.
this, Stephen. Like, there are other currencies out there that have lower interest rates that are also depreciating.
Yeah.
yeah, are
I mean-
those more interesting?
Of course.
It's a good question. Like
'Cause
if
that's
you run
the
the
basic
math on the
part you need to
lira,
get
it
right.
kind of works out
Right?
so far.
Yeah.
I think the inflation rate is far higher than the 33%
Well,
interest.
Erdogan
actually.
refused to raise the interest rates. He refused. Like, even though inflation was up, he was like, yeah, let's cut interest rates more.
Yeah, like in the last year, for example, that was like 7% probably positive carry in your favor. Now, you're kind of picking up nickels in front of a locomotive to an extent because it's like 7% on this like 33% rate. So if that goes against you, the
Yeah, so
pain
tell
could
me
be
where,
kind of
tell me where I
bad.
get fucked on this trade.
You get fucked on that trade if the lira appreciates versus the dollar, which it probably won't, or if say it.
Well, wait. Can we please spend
What?
a moment on that?
Yeah.
Why would it not? Why probably won't? Because that is literally the biggest risk in this entire trade. How do I know that the currency I pick is not the one that it begins to turn the corner and appreciate versus the dollar, or at least like close the gap?
I don't like this trade because you're putting on like a second trade. Like you may have super high conviction in Bitcoin, but like how many of you have really high conviction?
I don't
in
know
the
anything
inverse-
about these EM
inverse
market
lira.
currencies.
It's like
Nothing.
I actually think it's pretty easy to track. Like,
How?
you can monitor what the president and what the Turkish like version of a central bank says about their monetary policy, and you can get cues. And the only way that I see that the Turkish lira goes up against the dollar, and this came to place with a few people noticed in Discord. This is why the Mexican peso has gone up, is if they raise interest rates at a more aggressive rate than we
Right.
have. So if
their monetary policy has to be tighter than ours, meaning like their interest rate has to be higher than ours.
Is it really like a relative thing that I can
Yes.
just
Yes.
look at?
Yeah.
It's that direct of
Yeah.
a correlation.
Nick's right in that it's not insanely tricky to like it, but it's another thing somebody has to think about. I think probabilistically speaking, this trade works pretty well, and I think it juices your return maybe by like 5 or 10% a year.
But I think on a
on
net
the
basis,
borrow.
like there's other currencies that are like simpler to conceptualize. Like
The only other one that
Japanese
makes
yen.
sense is the Japanese yen. Like the yen right now is like a positive carry trade, right? For example, you can borrow yen on IB at as low as 0.75%, like
Wow.
if you've got like a Big Daddy account, but like 1.5% if you're like a normie.
Still
but even
positive-
at
still
1.5%,
positive
you
carry.
can borrow yen at 1.5%, immediately turn around and buy T-bills.
right at
And
five
at
and a half.
5.5%. So you can immediately, like if
Okay,
you
what's
have,
stopping anyone from doing that trade?
So
well, a lot of people are doing that trade. It's
So
a
this
huge
was-
trade that
this
people
was-
do.
How wide can you like push that?
this
Like,
was
how
my
big can
alpha for interactive brokers because you have all this negative sentiment towards it.
No, only on the UI. To be fair,
Oh yeah, so on the UI, I completely agree with you.
if I could like make money like these
Yeah,
simple
so-
trades, of
so, like,
course.
I have like an advisor account with Interactive Brokers, and I get like directed to like their advisor team on all my issues. But on one issue, I got routed to the hedge fund team, and the hedge fund team was like, "Hey, so you reached the hedge fund desk, but what's your problem? Let me help you through it." And I was like, "I need to borrow euros, and with those euros, I'm actually trying to invest back in US dollars." Oh, carry trade. Yeah, here's the positive spread right now. Here's the mechanics on how you do it, and do it. like
Wait, they were like,
it was like it
They
was
were like,
you
yeah, we've
up.
been doing that in
yeah,
size.
it was like, yeah, this is exactly how you do it. And I was like, oh, can I get your number? Can I get this direct line? So like,
cool.
I agree with you. The UX, the UI is awful, but like behind that is like
Yeah.
just the most
They're
powerful
ready to help you.
brokerage platform of all of them
Really?
by far.
Interesting. Okay, so I feel like maybe there's a trade of the century, millennium, decade, but there's also what's the like we all have an equilibrium here, right? Like where you want to find that like risk tolerance,
That edge, that alpha, but,
So
like, at
there's
what
an
cost?
alfalfa. So like Japanese yen sounds a lot more interesting to me.
I
go
kind
into
of
the
like
T-bill.
I kind of like,
Like,
the yen. Well, I kind of like the yen
to
Bitcoin
T-bill.
trade.
Fine. But you have to withstand incredible volatility, and I might lose on that trade on down years of Bitcoin.
There's not going to be volatility on the yen dollar that eclipses your
That-
Bitcoin
that your
return, right?
gain.
What's
I mean,
in-
no
what's
one's
interesting
talking about Bitcoin going down. Bitcoin went down fucking 80%. Like,
Right.
That could
What's
fuck you
what's
proper.
interesting about this trade, if
Yeah,
you're
that's what I'm
kind of
saying.
levered up on Bitcoin, right? What kind of fucks you if you go long Bitcoin is some sort of massive risk off event, right? In risk off events, the dollar tends to rally bigly, right? So if you borrow in some shittier currency and we have the risk off event and your Bitcoin kind of nukes, well, the thing you borrowed against is also probably going to nuke against the dollar. So it's going to actually probably
So your debt shrinks.
cushion,
Yeah.
cushion your loss to some degree in that direction. And there is some stability to the yen trade that you don't have with like say like the lira trade. I think the lira trade is probably very plus EV, but I think it's very
But
degen.
isn't cash for cash, like two different currencies carry trade, just make way more sense than like trying to buy this like
No, because like
extremely volatile asset?
no, like imagine you want to lever Bitcoin, right? So if you lever Bitcoin on say Bybit right now, you're probably paying I don't know, like the long term bull market leverage rate is probably like 14 or 15, 16%. I've seen funding get up to like 30% to go levered long. If you go levered long with yen, you're getting paid 4% to go levered long. So, and obviously you take on the exchange risk, but if the exchange rate stays constant, you're actually getting paid to buy more Bitcoin as opposed to paying these huge funding rates. So it is kind of interesting in that regard.
I would love some more brains on this. This is brilliant. I think it's a great share. I love your take on it as well, Eric. I'd love to know what people out there think in the community about this trade. And this is kind of reminds me of the credit card one from last week. I feel like this is one of those
the
where
real alpha shit.
the real alpha shit, like
Yeah.
people will come out of the
This is
woodworks
also
and be
like
"Yo,
very
let
experts
me,
only.
like,
Please don't do.
actually tell
please
you what's
don't
going
do
on here
this.
and like give you an edge that you didn't know you had.
So like
yeah,
I mentioned this
please
last
drop
week.
that.
I like talking through these things because it's like a
You have to
mental
talk through it.
repetition of like
To
going
not
through.
talk through it and do something like this blindly is just basically like ignorant and
like
irresponsible.
This is something I want to do with like 10% or 20%. So say I have like
That's a high percent.
no of my crypto account.
Okay.
But
Still feels
I think what I actually want to do is go like, have you guys seen like coin margin long contracts? Like normally when you go long, say like a Ethereum perp, you're using like dollars as collateral, and then you go leverage long ETH, and then ETH goes down against your collateral, and then like you lose. But there are also coin margin perps where you can say like have Bitcoin, and you can use the Bitcoin as collateral to go long more Bitcoin. So as like the price of Bitcoin goes up, like the value of your collateral goes up, and you have this like kind of positive convexity to it. So I think I want to
And
do that
negative.
as like a degen play with like 10% of my portfolio. I think next cycle to use like a coin margin position, which is kind of similar to doing something
I only
like
feel
this.
good doing those when like we're below like a 200-week moving average. Like we're historically below like
Yeah, I'm
the
not
bottom.
using any leverage
So like,
right now.
so to be clear, just to tie back into the title of the episode, I think that the trade of the millennium is to like buy Bitcoin or ETH or whatever your coin of choice is. This what he's describing is like how to enhance that trade.
Yeah, you could be like 2-3xing your return, even more, right? Because if you over time the lira keeps going down and Bitcoin keeps going up, you can actually keep compounding that. So if you're like a real degen, right? Like you can just kind of keep compounding and compounding, and you can take a gain that might have been like 5x and turn it into like a
So,
25x or something crazy.
I appreciate that. I like that. Like I'm normally the let's bathe in the theory, but let's get into the how. Like I just want to bring this like idea home. Like how are you like let's be really honest. Are you going to do this? And if you were, how exactly would you do it? And on what time horizon would you play it? And how active would your management of this trade be? I really want to know because I want to do it. Like if it's this, if it's potentially what we're saying it is.
I think basically nobody listening to this podcast should do that trade. Like if I'm gonna
No,
be
I like this better than buying meme coins though.
No,
Like,
Please
this is-
retitle the episode, Jordan. We're-
I like where Nick is going with this.
This is
though.
better than buying meme coins. Like I like this type of alpha because it is true alpha in the sense that like it is a degen play, but it's a risk adjusted one where like you have bounds and
to just support what you said earlier, it's like if the price of Bitcoin or ETH goes down to a level, well, then the risk adjusted return actually improves in your favor. So like you'd be more likely to do it with ETH at 1250 or something than it is now.
Absolutely.
And once it gets there, that is the time for you to fucking shove in with leverage. And what Steven's describing is like, well, what leverage should we be taking? Like leverage on US dollars or leverage on some
Okay,
other currency?
So do you have a favorite?
I mean, I would literally have to look at the borrow rate of every currency that's
Yeah.
available to me on Interactive Brokers, et cetera. But like, because at the end of the day, you don't even care about really the depreciation. You care about the spread between the depreciation you expect versus the borrow rate that you're paying in fixed terms or variable terms, whatever. So like, it really becomes, like what you pay versus what
but
you
see,
get.
you need to get to what Armand's saying. You need a brokerage account that allows you to borrow in these shit coins. That's step one.
Okay.
And we have to assume that a Bitcoin spot ETF is approved.
Yep.
Then the two other questions I would like answers to is like what time horizon, and then how often are you fucking checking these numbers? Because
Exactly.
like, do you have to check this
I
every
ain't
day?
got no time.
What's the maintenance
So
on this
yeah,
thing?
what is the maintenance?
2-year time horizon? 5-year?
Dude,
No,
like if you
it's
don't know
less
how to,
than
if
that.
you don't trade actively, you cannot measure a leverage position unless you do something very baby. Like you could go
Yeah.
like 10%
10% of
levered,
your
right?
LTV, and you don't have to look at it ever.
Yeah.
Where
But-
is the horizon? The
The
active.
longer it's like more
But the
advantageous
percentage.
to you. Like I would, if Bitcoin went down to 15K, I literally wouldn't care the time horizon. But the longer you stretch that out, the more advantageous it gets to you, the investor.
Yeah, I love the idea, like to build on what Nick said, of juicing part of your portfolio, just using baby leverage on the stuff you have conveyed. Like instead of saying like, okay, I'm going to buy ETH, and then I'm going to buy Matic, and I'm going to buy Arbitrum, and then I'm going to buy Pepe Coin, and then I'm going to buy these like 20 things. Like, what if like 100% of your portfolio is ETH, but 80% of it is spot, and you just take 20% and you just lever it up,
Yeah.
like 0.2 or 0.3 or 0.5, and like not even 2x, just lever it up.
Yeah, and, that
And if
gives
you
a
blow
net
up that, right, if you
115%
blow that up,
exposure.
that sucks.
But you're still
right?
at
But like the
80%.
meme coins you were gonna buy could have gone to zero anyway. At least you're just doubling down on the thing you actually believe in, and you're just juicing like a portion of that, and then you're keeping your focus very
Completely
So-
agree.
direct
Can
too.
we anything else on this, Armand?
I just
Because I want to stick on the leverage
What?
topic.
sad. I want
You
to do
sad?
this, but I feel like for these reasons I'm out. Like it's just.
Do you remember like
tough.
DeFi
I feel like it's
summer?
fine for like
It's just
5%, 10%. You know, you do something
But
like
I
that,
don't
you
do
with like a chunk.
5%, 10% things. Like, I guess I could. They couldn't. They like, wouldn't necessarily.
I remember
overly
That-
affect
well,
me.
here's what you can
Then I
do.
have to think about that,
Dude, do-
I have
well,
to think about that. and
Instead
that's
of
a
doing it with
reminder.
20% of your portfolio, do it with 5% and then 3x it.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, and then don't think about it. And if you
Sounds
blow
nice.
up, you lose 5%.
This is why people like Eric and Steven exist, because I remember
I know.
Steven coming to men's night being like, I bought fucking Ahi tuna token and it went up 30%. I'm also like farming the sushi token off
Yeah,
it.
there was
and,
like some chicken
and I'm
fuck
like,
that
just
he-
it sounds amazing. Like, can I just give you my money? Like, let me give you my money, please.
So
I know.
I want to ask you about, this like futures ETF got approved today for Coinbase.
Not
Not an
ETF.
ETF.
Just
Sorry,
futures
futures,
trading.
yeah.
futures trading on Coinbase. I'm sorry. Futures
Yeah, they got
trading out
some
of
sort
Peru.
of yeah.
So what is this like? Is this like, can I be like DYDX on Coinbase, or is this something completely different that we're not used to?
I don't know yet. I imagine they're going to basically ultimately open something that looks a little more like Binance, but with way less features. I'm assuming it's not going to have 100-to-1 leverage or whatever. I think it's awesome. I think it's great. I love seeing the progress in the space, the regulatory clarity. Like, it's very stupid that the government forces people to go into these like shitty offshore unregulated exchanges to trade derivatives. They're protecting nobody by kind of banning it in the US. They're just it's like the same thing you see in like the drug market and everything. People still use the drugs, they just go into some dark
let me ask you
alley and
this,
buy
like,
them, you know?
In your interpretation of this ruling, does that allow Coinbase to offer perps just to broad users?
My understanding is they're going to be opening up like an arm that does offer perps. It's going to be highly controlled. Like, you can't just your grandma can't just sign up for an IB account and trade futures options, right?
Because I think that the perp is a financial innovation that we don't really talk about that much. This didn't exist in TradFi. It existed in crypto, and it's like widely used in crypto to a point where, like, I was always wondering, like, why doesn't this exist elsewhere?
Yeah, that's a good point. It is one of the coolest crypto.
That's pretty
innovations.
rad.
Like
Like,
perpetual future.
Yeah, for people who don't know, like a perpetual future is different than like so normal futures contracts. You'll have something like say oil futures, right? And you'll be trading like a December 2023 oil future, and that means at the end of the date of the contract, at some point in December, yeah, you settle. The longs pay the shorts pay the long. Well, actually, that contract I think is physically settled in oil. Like, you have to take actual oil delivery.
you get barrels
But something
to your
like-
front door.
Yeah, so you want to not have that happen. But something like a S&P contract, you settle in cash, right? So the perp innovation in crypto is interesting because there's no date. They just keep rolling over and over. And they may settle like every hour and keep going and going and going. So there's no like monthly contract. You're just sort of perpetually long or short, and you slide a little leverage bar to the right, and it's quite.
That's an innovation. Huge.
Yeah, it's.
So they could deliver a DYDX type interface in Coinbase that
It's
you
a
guys
good question. Like if they can do the perps or they have to do like the monthly contracts thing.
I want to talk about a
beyond
different
my
type
pay
of
grade.
leverage in a second, but I like Brian Armstrong's mic drop. When there is a clear path to register, we do. And he's saying, like, this is a perfect example of it. It took us years to get this license, and we followed the path. We did everything they asked, and now we're approved. So, poke, Gary Gensler.
Yeah, I think the long-term ramifications of this is just that here's crypto making more and more inroads into the mainstream. You know, whether or not this becomes massively beneficial to users or whatever, like I think this could be massively beneficial to Coinbase, the company. Like they can like actually do way more trading activity and like get more earnings.
Yeah.
You know, that like would accrue to Coin, the stonk. So like I think this is bullish for the stonk.
Hey, I'm tipsy. I just want to announce that.
Okay, congratulations.
tipsy.
You had a
Thank you.
you had a very intense
you.
work
Yeah,
day
you
today. I saw
deserve
you
it.
fucking dialed in,
Yeah,
so you
dialed.
deserve it, sir.
Dialed.
Yeah. I want to talk about a different type of leverage. I told Cosmic in the Discord we'd bring this up. We've talked a lot about margin loans, and there's a different type of loan you could take against your securities. I've talked about it before, but I think it might be worth a rehash maybe. It's the securities-backed line of credit.
Ooh, yeah.
So, which is different than a margin loan. So, a margin loan, you borrow against your securities, but the only purpose of it is to buy more securities, to buy more stocks, to buy more bonds. A securities-backed line of credit, you borrow against your securities, and the only thing you can invest in are other securities. So you can use it for almost anything else. You could use it to fund a wedding. You can use it to buy real estate, like I have. I know some friends who become their own mortgage company, and they use that to fund their quote-unquote mortgage to buy their home in cash. And oftentimes for most of the time, the interest rate is significantly cheaper than a margin loan.
And they don't have to sell their stonks.
Right, you don't have to sell them. And do you guys know the margin rate on?
So you borrow,
Interactive
you
brokers?
pay off your mortgage.
Yeah,
You
it's like
become
four-
your own,
or-
6.5.
you become your own
No.
SOFR plus
bank.
80 bips or whatever.
Okay, So yeah, so let's say you want to buy a home. Let's say you got, I don't know, I'll just use round numbers. You got $5 million in stock portfolio and you want to buy a $2 million house. You obviously live in San Diego because no house is cheaper than $2 million. You borrow $2 million against your stonks and you'll probably get a quote unquote mortgage rate that's cheaper, maybe like a full percent cheaper. And you can use that to buy in cash and maybe get a better deal on the home because you're like, I'm a cash buyer. There's no risk of me not completing this deal. So like, I want some chips off the table. You buy the house in cash, and now you can pay yourself off the loan you took against securities every day if you want. You don't have to pay it off every month. You can
Full flexibility.
Yeah, and you see every month you have an interest due that you can pay. You might even be able to use your dividends from your stocks to
You can pay much less or much more than you would with a mortgage.
You can
What's
pay
your
essentially.
rate on the securities back line of
SOFR
credit?
plus 80 bips.
Okay.
What is it?
So there used to be this metric called 1 month LIBOR. It's basically like
Yeah.
equal to the Fed funds rate, whatever the Federal Reserve says it is. It's now called the SOFR rate. So it looks at the 30-day SOFR rate, which I believe is 5.2%. So I play 80 basis points. So effective interest rate is 6%.
Plus 80 basis.
And so
Okay.
oftentimes it's significantly cheaper than you would find a retail investor would find in like Charles Schwab if they want to take margin.
Oh, Schwab rapes.
Rapes you. Yeah, absolutely. And
I like Schwab.
so
It
again,
just rapes on margin. It probably is double digits right now.
yeah, it's probably over 10% to margin loan off of like your typical retail brokerage account. Okay, so and then the amount you can borrow is based upon essentially what's in your portfolio. Typically, you can get 50 to 70% of your stocks. You can get 65 to 80% for your bonds and 95% for your treasuries. And it isn't like a margin loan where there's a clear trigger. Like you hit this trigger, we're liquidating you to cover your margin loan. A line of credit is more about you and your relationship with the bank. You know, do you hold other assets with the bank? Do you have a business account with the bank? It's more of a conversation, so it's not like a hardcore trigger. They'll say, hey, we're getting a little close. You want to add more money, or like you want to pay it off? What do you want to do here?
I know the margin rigidity all too well.
Yeah, we all do, brother. So, you know, my personal opinion towards taking debt is that it should only go towards like buying assets that produce a higher return than your interest rate. I know we might talk cars at some point. Like I don't really believe in taking a car loan if you can afford it. So what Cosmic wanted to know is like, what did I use it for? So in 2015, was presented an opportunity with these limited partnership deals that I was just taking on, and I was doing some in cash, and I was like, but I want to do more. So I was like, I'm going to sell my stocks, and then I'm going to put them in these deals. And I happened to have dinner with a dad of a friend of ours who has a net worth that's multiple magnitudes greater than mine. And I was explaining to him, this is what I'm going to do. And he was like, why don't you just use a securities asset-backed line of credit? And I was like, the fuck is that? So he said, keep your stocks, let them continue to appreciate, borrow at a very low rate. At the time, it was 1% was my effective interest rate.
Because
And
LIBOR was so low.
LIBOR was like 0.22. So it was about 1% interest rate. And I was looking at deals that had a 7% cash on cash, overall return of like 17% annually. And so that's what I did. I levered up against my stocks and I put it in real estate. And, you know, so far, so good. Like instead of selling those stocks, those have been allowed to appreciate. The debt has stayed flat because what I found is that the dividends from the stocks, and I did have some bonds in there, like that was able to pay off the interest every month. Like the bond payments, the municipal bond payments and the dividends easily pay off the interest. So the principal never rose and the principal has stayed flat since I've taken it. And the idea is that over time, the stocks keep going up. My loan value gets smaller and smaller as a percentage of my LTV, essentially doing what we talked about the federal government doing is inflating away the debt, letting the stocks inflate, the debt stays the same, and over my lifetime, that would become a smaller percentage of the portfolio, and I would keep the debt and the real estate until I die and let the real estate compound over that lifetime.
Do you also take like dividend income on the stonks and pay down debt?
No, I let those reinvest, but like there is a small portion of the portfolio that's in these municipal bonds that even when Fed funds was 0.25%, the yield on those things was 5%. So it's actually arbitraging, essentially. Like I was taking the interest I was earning from the municipal bonds, paying off the debt on the line of credit, and the balance was staying the same, and letting the real estate compound. And I think it's had a profound impact on the ability for like net worth to grow. And so anyway, that's how I've used it.
You have also considered completely getting out of this.
Right.
What do you think that this person would say about that got you into this loan in the first place, about the trade of switching from one form to another? Essentially, what you have been considering is removing yourself of this burden.
Yeah.
What do you think that
He
person
put a
might
big
say?
smile on his face because he always has a
Oh, you
smile on his
did ask
face
this
because
question.
he's so just
Well,
ridiculously wealthy.
Post-economics.
Yeah, he's post-economics. He's like, oh, Nick, like, if you want to do that, you should do it. If you think that's a good idea.
It was that simple, huh?
But I've done a lot of these type of investments before, and like, these deals are just the best ever. Like, I fund my lifestyle from it. Like, I think he's actually at a point where he's at 7 figures of these apartment distributions a year.
Right.
So he's sitting
I
pretty.
want that.
Big dog.
Yeah,
I want that.
Yeah. So anyway, he just puts on a big smile, like, well, Nick, if you really believe in it, you should do it.
Yeah.
So he has, no worries.
Mickey Mouse voice.
I know,
kind of
but
does.
that's
'Cause he just
typically
so happy.
Yeah, it's just pure. Like it goes in the belly. It enters
it starts
through,
from the
it
loins.
enters through the belly button, and it just like seeps through all your pores when you're that free. But like specifically, this question of like, yo, should I sell all my stonks and like
So I'd have to pay off this debt.
pay off this debt?
So what I liked about this trade originally was that if I at any point wanted to sell off this debt, I would have just been where I started plus some. So originally I was going to sell the stocks and buy the real
Exactly.
estate. And if I wanted to do that now and
what
put
do
it
you
on
think
real
about
estate,
that?
I would just sell the stocks, pay off the debt, and buy the real estate. Except now the stocks have significantly appreciated over the last, like, call it, 8 years. And so far it's been good. And if I want to do that, it might be a little sad because, like, the amount of money I have,
total.
yeah, it goes down because I pay off this debt.
Yeah,
But
in terms of
I'm better off than when I would have been. Now, if
better off in what way?
like better off that my stock portfolio continued to compound with a larger principal than if I would have sold it and bought real estate in the first place.
Okay.
So, but now would I do that? No, because like there's not that many real estate deals that are going to beat a 6% hurdle rate. Like I was
Yeah.
beating it by a significant margin just on the cash on cash. So not so much anymore. I wouldn't re-engage this strategy from inception, but I am thinking about doing it to buy some ETH at some point if the risk return presents
Totally
itself.
agree. And like, man, I think like with regard to Armand's question earlier, it's like, let's get into some of these like real estate LP deals, but the current environment just doesn't feel like it's like the perfect time to do that.
I posted in Mailbox Money. There was a deal that came through, and it was like 4.5% cash on cash, and the total annual return, including cash on cash and appreciation, was like 14%. And I was like, guys, like I can get 5.5% risk free. What the fuck?
Yeah. Like, why would I risk my money for 4.5% when I could get risk free
And
5.5%?
Granted, they always kind of beat the business plan.
Sure.
They're always ahead of it, but like I'm just like, I want to wait till that industry bleeds. And I also posted a Mailbox Money of another GP being like, hey guys, we have a loan opportunity. We've never done a loan opportunity before, but here's the opportunity. One of our properties is fucked. And anyway, we would like to present an opportunity for the LPs to provide a loan
You wanna
to
bail
that
us out?
property. Yeah, at a
Wow.
10% interest rate. And I'm like, and I got these this new deal and this deal like within the same day. And I was like, yeah, no, we're going to let this industry
Let's
bleed.
let this simmer a little
Yeah,
bit.
and let it bleed. And then we'll scoop up some good returns in 2024 maybe.
Yeah. On a completely unrelated note, I would like to announce to the Alfalfa community that my Bybit account is now accepting loans.
Oh, really?
At a low
do you need to be bailed out, sir?
I don't think we have time for the AI thing.
I agree. Let's punt it.
Let's go to meaning because I like meaning. Meaning is good. Meaning is good.
You need
I
to-
like
someone-
meaning.
Someone was so funny. They were like,
like
"Wait, so
lamp.
you do money and then meaning? So you always end on like a palate cleanser type of note?" I was like, "Do you listen to our podcast? We say that a lot." They were like, "No, I just made that up completely." But that's Steven's favorite way of describing it. It's a palate cleanser.
Yeah. So far, money and meaning split test going well.
Money and meaning is so
That's
solid.
just
Money
because
meaning
people
is good.
love alliteration.
Well,
yes, but that doesn't negate the fact.
Yeah.
absolutely. And we
So
didn't
where
talk
are we
about
going in the meaning
We didn't talk
department?
about the car buying alfalfa either. We might have to come back to that
It's all
next
right.
week.
People still need cars next week.
So, something that comes up often in conversations with other guys, other men on a men's night.
Are these like
perhaps,
woo-woo
if you
guys
will.
or like?
No, not
Okay.
at all.
All right.
I think like we're very lucky that we do something that created this podcast called Men's Night, and we have conversations of honesty, at times laced with vulnerability, at times laced with just going a little bit deeper. Van dieper, if you will. Van dieper to look for
What?
really is the yes, Jordan.
We had a $250 tip from an Anon.
Whoa!
We have an anonymous
The
donation.
bar tab in Austin.
Wow!
Wow.
Hold on. Anonymous $250?
Should I
there a
leave my
message?
brother-in-law's wedding in Turkey and just go straight to?
Oh, we'll spend that in the first hour, brother, and we very much appreciate it.
because I don't think they can.
I'll
hear
be gone
it.
in 5 minutes, but thank you.
Okay, so he donated specifically for the bar tab in Austin.
You son of a bitch.
So
This man is anonymous.
the reason he says Austin is because we're going to permissionless. It's from
Can
September
we
11th to the
take some
13th.
time to properly announce this then?
Yeah,
since he just did
permissionless
that?
is
Yeah, let's
he
chill
or
it a
she.
little bit.
He or she.
it's a big conference. Bankless, our buddies at Bankless are kind of the co-hosts of this conference. They put together all the content. Blockworks is the other kind of event producer of this thing. And you went to it last
I did.
year.
Solo trip. Fuck you guys.
Yeah.
No
all
one
right.
came
Well,
with me.
fuck you back because only Steven and
Yeah.
I are going.
Well, I know.
yeah.
I know.
Fuck me then.
Yeah. Fuck me, man. Fuck me.
So anyway, we'd love to support our buddies at Bankless, and also it's a great place to learn about crypto, get around some people, and it's got like tight knit community vibes. You know, like there's not a bunch of new people flooding into the industry right now. So
I'll say
I'm
what
really
I said
excited.
last
to meet
year.
What
her.
does he know about it? He's
I'll
talking
say-
about
Yeah,
it.
what are you talking about, dude? I'll say what I said last year about. Well, I said this more about ETH Denver, which was very effective because I happened to meet the co-founder of Steno. Like my company ended up like I met somebody at ETH Denver by saying this. So let me.
That
just,
was our Alfalfa
let me
community.
Let me just say this: the first meetup that we properly did. What I put out, what we put out, the energy we put out is like, look, there's a lot of you out there listening to this podcast. You don't engage. You're not an engager. You're just a watcher. You're a listener, but you're a people person, or at least you would like to be, and you like the opportunity to meet like-minded people. This really is that opportunity that you should step up and take action and show up. And last time we did this, and last time I said that, we had some of the most incredible people I've ever met show up that
I was
we hung
blown
out
away.
with for 3 days. I had conversations with somebody. Someone walked up to me and he's like, "Armand, you like physics, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I fucking love physics." I'm like, "Let's talk about quantum physics." And he was like, blew my brains apart, talking about quantum physics for like an hour, drinking beers. So many beers went by. And then at the end of it, he goes like, "Yeah, I'm also a data scientist." I'm like, and he's like, "I'm trying to build an AI company." I'm like, and obviously, like, I do this, I run this, I was looking for somebody like this. Long story short, he's here right now in
He's
San
in the
Diego.
other room.
He's in the other room. He might have gone back to the Airbnb, but like, we became business partners. Like, it is real. Come out. I'm very sad that Eric and I will not be there, but I wanted to make that pitch for it properly because I think you guys are going to have an amazing time.
Yeah. So I was gonna
My FOMO is 10 out of 10.
It's gonna hype up permissionless, but the real alpha will be our meetup of our community, people who listen. And shout out to Emma Paradox in the Discord. She is helping us organize this. She's scouting some bar venues, and she did a great job last time. And
Yes.
so she's actually going to be there this time.
God damn, she's gonna be there. We're not gonna be there.
I know.
Everyone's going to be there.
Unreal.
Oh, you're not going to be
Everyone's
there.
gonna be there.
But
We're
I will
both
be
missing
there.
out.
And there's I heard there's an Alfalfa house forming, an
There is
Airbnb.
Alfalfa house. Is there a pickleball court?
There are pickleball courts nearby. I scouted that out.
Okay.
I will be bringing my paddle if anybody wants to challenge me. Oh, also, I forgot to warn everybody. I did purchase a plane ticket yesterday, and I will be flying tomorrow. So if you hold any Ethereum,
yeah,
you
yeah,
are
yeah.
definitely going to get wrecked. I mean, you've already been partially wrecked. That was sort of the warning shot.
Yeah,
but
Magic Lines was calling for pretty
yeah,
good pump here.
you've been warm. Pump. I've been calling for 17s for like 3 weeks, buddy.
Well, guys, that was
Follow the channel.
I think the biggest one we've ever had.
Yeah,
as well.
he's our new daddy,
That's the new daddy is Anon.
or it could be a mommy. I don't know. Who knows?
Might have been me. No, it's definitely not. Okay,
Rectum
so
just got the message.
Thank you, you're good. You
And yeah, Hook'em's been big. He just mentioned in the chat, like he's been roping people into it. It's gonna be.
Yes.
It might be the party house of permissionless.
yeah. Even if you don't stay at the Alfalfa compound, come to the Alfalfa compound.
Maybe we'll do a podcast at the Alfalfa.
Maybe.
Con.
I hope you guys do a fucking
You
podcast.
can't do a podcast.
I hope you do.
I can't do one, or we can't not do one.
You can't not do one.
All
Okay,
right.
so back to the topic at hand. I'm trying to lob this gently over
You want
to
to get in a
Eric.
meeting?
And what I am getting to here is that deep breath.
Yeah.
Some of us are in relationships out there in this community. Us four here, we all happen to be in a relationship. And one of the things about relationships is that they morph. They
doubt.
morph over time. And your friends don't tell you this. It's unfortunate. It's sad. Because if you knew that life has these very significantly important seasons to it, you would be more acutely aware of that fact, and you would be prepared for this person that you've determined to spend time with completely going through a new variation of their personality. And I think that's what this conversation is ultimately about. We call it the 7-year itch, the 10-year itch at times. People change and people start to look left and right and seeking something else. Why do we seek something else? And Eric was having a conversation this past weekend, which maybe you can fill us in on and we can continue the conversation.
Yeah, so I got some old friends from high school that were just in town. You know, like one lives in Tokyo, one lives still in California, but we reconvened because Tokyo guy's in town, and this guy from Tokyo described to me that he was going through the 7-year itch, and then it basically resulted in like a cacophony of like uniformity with like all these guys are like, oh man, I've been married for so long, I got kids for this many years or whatever, and I couldn't help but think to myself like, is that even unique to you guys? Or is this just a byproduct of relationships in modern humanity that we don't really talk about enough? Because I don't know. I'm only 1 year into my marriage and I feel fucking great. But like that's different than being, 15 years deep and you got kids and you got all this shit. So my buddy from Tokyo, I'm not going to name any of these guys, but my buddy from Tokyo, he goes, we have this phrase and we have this culture in Tokyo. It's like so abundant. He said, he's like in Japan, it's so normal that we have this phrase, and he said it like in Japanese, but he said, once your wife becomes a mom, she is no longer your wife. She's just a mom. And then that leaves you to go and like gallivant essentially. And I don't know what to think about that other than like, that's what he said about Japanese culture.
It's just interesting.
It's just interesting. And he also mentioned that Japanese culture, it is a little more acceptable to
Promiscuity.
be this salaryman that goes and does this shit off hours. Like if you like go and pay for sex, for instance, this is not what he's doing. I'm just saying like
It's more acceptable.
it's like that's almost like viewed as therapy
Right.
more so than that's cheating.
So
Totally.
when you were talking to these two buddies, did they say explicitly that it was like their want to do something different? Was it partner focused, or was it just like, I would like to live a different life, like I want a different career, I wish I did more adventures?
Good question. I actually think the other guy, the outcome was the same. It was like questioning, like, holy shit, like, should I have gotten married so earlier than you did, or et cetera? But it was like the manifestation was like based off of different inputs, you know, perhaps like culturally here, you know, that type of philandering is completely looked down upon. That would never be acceptable. But his was like, you know, like we're older to sort of like start fatherhood or whatever.
Yeah.
Armand's the only one of us. So like he started much younger, and he was like, God damn, like I don't know if I was ready to like give up my previous life or whatever. You know, like I was a guy who would go out to the bars and be sociable or whatever, and I don't know that I was ready. Like I know myself, I know that I'm fucking ready. Like I don't give a fuck about the bars
You
or
live
anything
that
anymore.
part fully.
I've like fully exhausted and squeezed out all the juice from that orange. I'm fine. But like I'm wondering if this is like a much more common thing than meets the eye, because like nobody's talking about this. You know, we have that phrase, the 7-year itch.
It's
but
definitely in the taboo department.
it feels
man.
taboo, but I'm wondering, like, is this just like a
But
normal?
it's like, can we please try to be that to a certain degree, where we normalize these things a little bit, at least?
Wait,
I think
what are
it's
you
important.
normalizing?
Yeah, what are you talking about? Like therapy?
I'm normalizing.
Purchasing hookers in Tokyo?
No.
the
No.
desire, like I think there's
I'm
a difference
normalizing
too.
the conversation happening at all. I'm normalizing, like, what do you seek? What comes up for you when you're in a long-term relationship? What feelings do you have? How frustrated do you get at times? Do you get frustrated? Do you have, is it a, as Nick was saying, is it a thing that I'm seeking variety in my life? Or is it actually a thing where, like, exploring even the idea of monogamy, like, I think is an interesting idea that a lot of people are just like unwilling to explore because they're afraid of the repercussions of like how society will treat them for exploring the idea at all.
Well, I like-
just think, like, I just generally am saying, like, can we just explore these things?
I like how you framed it. I want to just say that I like the term, the itch.
It's
because
an itch.
because an itch doesn't necessarily mean an action. It's just a sensation. Like
Right.
like it's just a sensation, and you can feel that thing to whatever degree you feel it, and how hard you scratch it, or if you scratch it, or like do you make your fucking skin bleed, etc., is like completely up to you, perhaps. And that's sort of where I'm want to take it, because it's like I want to just start with, like, does everyone feel this itch to begin with?
I think that's beautifully framed, Eric. Like the way it is a sensation doesn't mean like whenever you feel jealousy or anger or like even pure excitement, you don't necessarily have to express it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's natural to say that like almost every man has that itch, right, at some point. And you know, I think my gut reaction is that if you feel that, I think it is the man's responsibility to take accountability for the relationship. And if you're missing an aspect of it, whether it's a sexual part or an adventure part or just like a feeling in the relationship, like it's kind of on you to bring it back somehow. Now, and we're leaving out issues of infidelity. We're leaving issues of like lying or finance issues. Like, let's put that aside. It's just a, you know, typical relationship. No
I feel like
issues.
a man should be the driver.
Responsibility for all of these important components of the relationship should fall onto the man.
Okay, maybe rephrase it. Like, we all talk about locus of control,
Yes.
like internal locus of control versus external. Like, where do you believe your life, the control resides, for
Yes.
yourself or for elsewhere? And so, you know, like if you have an issue in your relationship, it's kind of on you to make the effort to fix it. And that's kind of where my first instinct goes with that. Like, if you have this itch, well, then you should even double down on the relationship. Like, okay, well, what am I missing? Because like maybe I need to get what I'm missing. Maybe I need to give that to my partner. So if you're missing, let's just say sexual adventure. Okay, well, maybe you should give that
Isn't
to
it
your
interesting
partner.
that we immediately start to like think about it externally rather than we're thinking, why isn't that being given to me, instead of thinking, how can I give that to create that?
Yeah, it'll come back
Is
to you
that
because it's
essentially what you're
likely that
saying?
like, hey, you're not the only half of this relationship that's like
No,
thinking.
you literally
thinking this.
could create that by giving that. You could be like, hey, every Thursday night we're going to pull a card and we're going to do some kinky shit. And it's going to be great.
Right.
And you do that twice. And she's going to be like, by the way, on Tuesdays, we're going to do this other thing where we go out and we exercise this other part of the relationship that you've been seeking, which is like quality time or a massage or words of affirmation or whatever it might be.
Yeah, yeah.
But like you have to give to get.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's like the first place. And obviously that could fail, right? It could fail. So I don't know. That's where my instinct goes. Like, if that happens, whatever you're missing, maybe you should try giving. But then I've also heard arguments like Tim Ferriss, which are completely on the other side of the spectrum. He's like, no, this is a itch. It exists. It's natural. It's programmed into your DNA. So there are rules that you can set to make this acceptable. Rule number 1, don't cheat within or have an affair. Let's call it not cheating. Have an affair within your social circle. Why would you disrespect your other person by doing that within your social circle? Rule number 2, be safe. Use a condom or whatever. Like rule number 3, like take precautions to like make sure they don't find out about it. Like if you're gonna do that, do the respect of keeping it, like quiet. And so he's got a completely opposite take. It's not my preferred take. Like I think that leads you down a very slippery slope of fucking personal hell. But anyway, I've heard that other.
Why do you think that?
Because, like, I mean,
what do you think it leads to constantly seek, like, as a man, just like sexual gratification one after the other and doing this whole shit in secret? Like, what do you think that leads to?
Well, because, like, I'm
this
speaking
is
from
psychologically fascinating.
personal experience. Like, I've had, off and on relationships in the past prior to my existing relationship. And, like, I just kind of, like, hopped around from, like, dating to dating. And you're seeking something, and you often, you take that new thing, and it doesn't provide you the thing you wanted. Like whatever you were seeking, it, I don't know, doesn't give you that. And then you hop to the next one.
Yeah.
You hop to the next one. And I
Yeah.
think you realize that, like, no matter how alluring that is.
What do those give you though? Because they give you something. It's a dopamine hit.
They give you
It
uncertainty.
is a high. It's
just
just
like
a
a
high.
quick high. It's like a quick hit.
It's a high, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is the most powerful drug there is, personally. I think, like, if you become susceptible to the sex addiction drug, like, I think, like, the thing that I'll be honest, like, I joke about sex, and I'm very, like, sexually driven and all these things, but, like, the thing that I am, like, very, very aware of is how powerful it is, knowing that if I was to fall prey to it, I would be wrapped up in it as a sex addict so fast. Like, I joke about it, like, sex addict, but, like, the reality is, like, I have it very under control for a reason, because I know I would be, like, lost completely.
Like beyond
I would just
nicotine
be this,
or anything,
No.
like-
I would just be this person that, like, get into trouble a lot and, like, ruin my life and, like, not have a family and, like, ruin every relationship. Like, it would just so easily happen. Because
yeah.
it is the most alluring, powerful drug on the planet. Like, it really is. Like, falling in lust with someone is really, really powerful. Like, because it's so unique to you each time. The type of lust that you look for is a specific type of lust each and every time. And then if you meet a succubus, like, then you're really fucked, right, Steven?
Dr. Succubus.
Yes.
Dr. Succubus.
Yes.
Steven and I have had a few succubi.
Define succubus.
Yeah, well, he's not going there. Continue.
All right. So
Yes.
I've had friends in the past, not our current friends, who have gone down that path.
Yeah.
Some who have been caught, some who haven't. And in both cases, karma has its own place. Like, people think karma is this thing that's external, right? It, like, flows through the universe and it literally comes back to you in the physical realm, right? I don't think that's true. I think, like, karma is essentially like guilt that you carry internally. Like,
I like
that is your
this.
karma. You made a mistake. You know you did. And that is a shit you have to carry.
It's an internal manifestation.
It is. It is. And that affects how you go forward. And so I've seen people who have gotten caught and people are like, karma. They got caught. They got fucked. I've seen people who haven't got caught. But fuck, do they feel that more than the person who got caught? And
Wild. What a fucking beautiful insight here.
And so, you know, we talk about risk-adjusted investments, right? Like that is one of the worst things you could do.
Yes.
Is like cheat
Yes.
for this like fleeting, literally
Yes.
3-second
this
moment.
is the alfalfa of the
to
conversation.
ruin-
3 seconds. My God.
Well, hey, speak for yourself, brother.
I'm more, yeah.
But like in reality, like you could cripple your family, like your immediate
Dude,
family.
the
like-
cost is so tremendous.
and you're not even talking about the
It's
social
so
cost because like
tremendous.
your significant others are friends with everyone else, and like it just like it's too much. It's
Yeah,
not
and we're
even,
not
it's not even
obviously
close to
in
being
the
worth it.
camp or of the group of people that are in like polyamorous relationships and are in a situation where they do that, because that's also very interesting. Like those people have solved their itch by creating rules that are within the bounds of like they've come up with something that is respectful enough that they can adhere to, that there's like mutual agreements upon, where you can have fun, sometimes with each other, sometimes separately, and it's like you still can create a long-term bond where you are each other's main partner. And it seems to be that a lot of, I don't know the data behind this, but it seems to be growing. It seems to be that the general compass is pointing in that direction, and that is growing, but not fast. Like it's
Yeah.
still a very small segment of society that even begins to play in that region of like having more than one partner ever. But unfortunately, what happens is like, I don't know, what do you guys think about this idea that like so many people cheat? Like so many people get divorces.
No,
Like,
I think it's
what
like-
is this?
I
that
wonder how
causes
like
that?
what are the actual stats on that? I don't know.
Well,
Exactly.
I
It's
know
one of
for
those
a
things that you
fact-
can't know for fact.
Well,
I feel like
no. We know that like half of relationships, half of marriages in America don't succeed. We know that.
Okay.
And we know that a huge reason why is because there's like
Infidelity is a major
infidelity.
reason. Major
And
reason.
we know that most people don't get caught. So there's a more higher percentage of people than the divorce percentage that are like sleeping around.
well, I
So,
heard
like,
that. I heard that
what is
guys
that?
guys don't cheat.
Of course not.
So
No, but
okay,
what is that?
So this marriage, this is like the most important business partnership you'll ever be in your entire life. It affects like every part of your finances, your emotional health, your probably physical health too. And you have to avoid two traps. You have to avoid financial hardship and infidelity. And if you can avoid
those are the two backbreakers.
those are the top two reasons for divorce. And so if you can avoid those two things, like you have an extraordinary like
Basically,
probability.
you have a
of-
successful marriage,
it may not be successful. You may not be happy all the time.
but you have a
To
marriage
completion.
that is still legally completed.
Yeah. And like my girlfriend watches this show on Netflix. It's called Indian Matchmaker. It's fucking
Oh, I've
hilarious.
seen it.
God.
Oh, we had a friend that was on that motherfucker.
So anyway, the dating part.
You know him.
Really?
Yeah.
Indian matchmakers gnarly.
On
Okay.
Netflix?
Yeah.
I
But
gotta
don't
see
forget
that.
the
He's on
matchmaking part. Intermittently amongst the episode, they show two older Indian couples, probably in their 60s, 70s, and they'd be like, "So you had an arranged marriage and you're still together. You met each other. You got married within like 7 days of meeting each other. Like, are you happy?" And they're like, "Yes, we're happy. Like, there is no out. Like, we are committed to each other. Will we say we were happy every stretch of that way? Fuck no. They probably hate each other for like 7-year stretches, you know, but along the way, you know, you weave yourself back and like, you know, business partnerships
this-
go that way
you-
too.
You're,
And
you're going directly back to where I tried to start the conversation, which is that I wish people would tell you that these different phases and these different seasons existed within a relationship. You might go through stretches of time where you don't want to be around this person in the same way that you used to when you were their best friend and they were your best friend and you wanted to spend time around them. But longevity in a relationship, I think, and we could sit here and we could talk about like what it would mean to have longevity in a relationship versus not, and go from relationship to relationship, and how much more powerful it is to be with somebody when you're old and have a family, if you would so like. These are beautiful ideas, right?
yeah.
But let's
Beautiful.
just say you got past all of that, right? Having that relationship and not having the situations where you go from like, you know, I'm going to follow my like internal bliss and desires and just like sleep around, whatever. I don't know. I think that there's like a deeper thing to gain from learning to withstand these like tumultuous periods of time where it's not what you thought it would be. And on the other side of that, I guess essentially what I'm saying, to make it really simple, is like when you overcome the difficult periods of time in a relationship, what you often find on the other side of the relationship is a relationship you never imagined was possible. So to be specific and to use myself as an example, I've been with my wife for 12 years. I met her when I was 25 years old.
Bro, you look like chickenpox itchy.
Chicken pox. And I would say, actually, like if there wasn't itch, it was, interestingly enough, like after we got married, which nobody warned me about these things. Like this is the other thing. Like I'm trying to put these things out into the world because I believe that no one talks about these things. Like these are the things that you should be talking about with your friends on a Wednesday or Saturday night when you're out. And when the itch came around, there was difficult periods and we had to learn to recommunicate with each other. We had to learn that we were not the person that we thought we were. We had to learn that like our communication style was changing. We had to learn that the things that we thought the other person was going to give to the relationship, even the ways in which I intended to show up to the relationship with Erica or she intended to show up with me, were changing. I thought that I could count on her to do certain things, and all those things started changing. But what we found on the other side was like you're evolving, you're choosing to evolve with this person for the rest of your life. Did you really think it was going to be the exact same for 80 years? That's such an insane idea.
Bro,
and so
that's
you
rad.
have to let go and you have to accept that you are in a constant, perpetual and here's the beauty of it. If you can accept that you're always at the beginning instead of the middle or the end, what you will find is that you can fall back in love over and over again.
So you're always at the beginning
You're
of
always
something
at the
new.
beginning. Who is
Oh,
she? What is she
rad.
becoming? What is she into? Why is she into that right
Okay,
now?
that's-
Why is she becoming a hard ass about
That's
this?
something
Why
brand
is
new to
she-
me. That's
Why is
brand
she
new.
so not turned on by that even? What is that? What does that mean she is turned on by?
Because you got pants
And
on
what
pants,
can I
bro.
be curious? These used to kill it, dude. These used to kill it. But it might be that she's into something else today. And if you can transmute that into something new, I think that you can find a lot of fulfillment in
I
the
mean,
relationship.
I love the direction you're taking that. But I was thinking of one of our oldest episodes, which was about happiness. And I can't remember who it was in the Discord that like asked me something unique, because you guys were like, I guess in his mind, you guys were more of like, let me get peak happiness at the expense of like doldrums too. And he was like, yeah, Eric, it seemed like you were like more okay with being like a 6.5 guy, you know, like just being a happy guy. And I feel like that's sort of what you're saying, where it's like you get into a relationship long enough to a point where it's like you don't have that fucking euphoria of like getting this brand new girl that's gonna fucking give you something.
Nothing compares to that high of romance and lust that exists
Yes.
when you're trying to get laid.
Like that's like a that's-
let's just be very fucking honest.
It's a drug.
When you're trying to get laid and that new everything, the smell, the excitement, the how do I catch her, nothing in the world compares to that. And by the way, for women as well, being able to be there and attract a man to want you and to chase you, there is nothing better in the world. I know that is true for you women as
Totally.
well.
They, like,
there's nothing
they
better.
love feeling this way. Like,
You
we both
couldn't be more valued.
Yes, we both
you
feel this
are
way.
this thing that needs that.
But I think like what I agree with you on is that like when you like are able to like ditch that drug and
Yes.
get into a place where you're like, no, I'm like actually really happy. And happy doesn't feel like fucking 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, every day 10, 10, 10. It's like every day to me feels like happy, like above
your
average.
values change, right?
Yeah.
You value some stability. You value the ability to trust this person. You value
With
the ability
everything.
with everything. And I think that trust is undervalued in society. Like you can't trust that girl you meet at the bar that you get
Yeah,
laid. You
right.
can't trust her at all.
Zero trust.
You can't trust her with even how you really feel about your relationship with your parent. Like, you know, there's such a common thing as well. Like one of the values of a relationship, which by the way, I know many people that don't want to be in a serious relationship with somebody. They actually value more the variety and the spice of life and moving from relationship to relationship, or what they value is just generally being single and being by themselves. And honestly, if that makes you happy, more power to you.
Yeah, if that's your 6.5.
That is your 6.5. That is your 8. That's your 7.5. That's your bliss. Great. But there are people that are seeking the ability to open, like to open their mind, to open their heart, to open their emotions. And I think that's beautiful. But you can't do that with somebody that you meet over a weekend unless you have developed a certain level of trust pretty quickly. Because one of the values of relationship, one of the reasons to stay in a relationship is that this person, like, if you really develop the bond at a deep enough level, like, I do think you can count on them in life to have your back and to know you in a deeper way than is just beyond like, okay, we're just falling in lust together.
I definitely subscribe to that there are dividends to that compound over time by staying with the same person. But I also think there's like a reality of it that you have to understand that it's going to suck. And if it sucks for like a year or two, that's part of the fucking deal. Like when you enter in a business, like it's going to suck for a while. When you go into a hard workout, it's going to suck. But beyond that, it's good. I remember it was like over a decade ago, I was dating this girl and she was like talking about the future. And she's like, yeah, like I fully plan to like hate you for like 2 or 3 years if we ever get married. And I was like, in a row? Like, what do you?
Yeah.
What?
That sounds so advanced.
That
God
sounds terrible. And like,
advanced.
it didn't like register to me at the time. I was like, well, definitely not going to be with you. See ya.
Yeah.
But
She
I
was
think
just
what she
more
was
advanced
implying
than
is
you.
like, no, like these will go through ups and downs, and like this is my like signal to you that I'm committed. That like I'm okay hating you for a few years because I'll still be
I'm
there.
still in.
I'll still be there,
God
even
damn.
though like
What a signal.
you know you fuck up.
Where'd
Anyway,
you do that one?
What's going on? What do you? Come on.
I'm just listening.
No, we don't have that. This is called a podcast. You're a co-host. You have thoughts too.
But you were just cold open on like the 90
No,
things
you
you just
just-
talked about.
Drop in.
yeah, I mean,
have a
there's
seat.
lots of threads
I
to pull
don't
on
even.
there.
I don't even know what I'm. What do you?
Oh damn! I can't
what
wait
are
to
your burning?
use Steve
What are your
and-
burning questions?
on my burning questions. Pull on any of these threads. Give me something.
Give me a thread to
You're
pull.
you're a thread or okay.
Give me a thread to pull.
But you
I'll
are
give you
a
a
very
thread.
committed type of person, right? Like
You okay?
the non-commitment, I feel like never enters your brain.
You
Is that
think deeply about all things.
Yeah.
Fair. You've thought deeply about like the idea that like human beings fall into these like patterns where they can like seek the single life and just try to like make that the fulfilling like path forward. And there's also like just generally being committed. And so where are the trade-offs? Like just generally speaking for you, like where do you think the trade-offs lie? And you don't have to be like, this is what it is for me, but like you've analyzed this topic. I know you have. So like, where do you think human beings land on this? Like there's like why marriage? Okay, here's even another aspect of this. If that thread wasn't juicy enough for you, why does marriage exist at all? It exists. We talked about this 3 nights ago, Stephen. Marriage exists to make sure we don't go out into the world humping other things and having babies. We talked about this. Did we not?
I mean, it seems like a bit of an oversimplification.
No, it's not. We talked about this. We said that marriage exists as a societal construct to prevent men from having sex with more women than necessary, leaving them with children, and leaving us without responsibility. We discussed that. And I think that. I think that marriage makes me a more responsible man, makes sure that I stay with my partner and stay home and take care of the family. Whereas my natural inclination is to go out into the world and hump. That's my natural inclination.
I think my thesis was that enforced monogamy mostly reduces
Making
like
it sound a lot
violence,
smarter,
right?
But yeah, go ahead. Enforced monogamy is what?
Man, every single man can't run around and impregnate women. That's not how it works. So what happens is you have like a couple of men impregnating a ton of women, right? Because like a woman can't get pregnant by like 5 guys.
Well,
in the
because
same-
women are in charge. They get to decide who gets to, and there's a certain percentage of males that get to do the
Right.
humping.
Yeah. So if you have some sort of like societal paradigm where like a woman can just like one, it's acceptable for one guy to impregnate the entire tribe, then
Right.
all the other men have nothing to live for unless they do that. So they all just like fight to the death like a bunch of silverback gorillas or something.
Yes.
Or become like unproductive, and that's not good
So
for
marriage,
society.
in a way, ensures
He's got like a David
monogamy.
Attenborough voice
No, but
going on about
monogamy ensures
marriage.
that society actually that we evolve in a sense. You're saying that we have variety of the gene pool. Is that what you're saying?
I hadn't considered that. I just think culturally we just devolve into chaos if we don't have that. Because you
Definitely
can't have a
chaos.
bunch of men growing up to just think, okay, I'm going to fight all the other men to be the top gorilla, and if I don't do that, I'm either like I'm just worthless, or I'm just going to completely opt out and just leave society, for all intents and
But
purposes.
it,
Neither
like-
of those things is good.
It's like kind of like what you described with hypergamy. It's just the filter went from strength in your example to successful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we're sort of like reinstituting that in modern society, right? When you take away when you remove like sex from having children, right, and you make it this thing that you can just do all the time, and then you also say it's like, oh, it's empowering to do that, and women can do it just as much as men can do it. Then you start recreating the same situation we got away from. Like if you look at the dating world in Manhattan, for example, right? It's probably like the worst
Right.
example of this. You basically have like a very sliver of the top percentile of like successful, desirable men. They're just running around like just dating the shit out of everybody. And then there's a whole chunk of other men who are just like left without anybody to pair up with. And then it seems like a lot of like not all women, but a lot of the women's reaction to that isn't like, whoa, 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 we need to reinstate these old rules because they were good. The reaction to it is like, oh, well, we just need to one up the men and be like, well, no, we're gonna sleep around more, and then it just like it creates like a worse problem. But this is like kind of different than I think what you were originally talking about in the context of committed relationships, though. So I feel like I've gone down
This
a
is, I
I mean,
don't
this
know.
is
It's
like-
a huge topic.
This is
There's
not
a lot to-
somewhat related to the 7-year itch, but like I actually think this same framework can exist outside of like a legal bounds of a marriage. I've talked to you guys about this before. Like I don't think it's necessary. I think like our current culture like uses marriage as the finish line, and it's not. Right? Like marriage is the start of the finish line. It's
I like that.
they're like I just want to get married. If we're married, then
Right.
I
It's
reach
sort of
this
like,
goal
yeah,
and
success.
I can move on to the season of life, and I don't think that's necessarily true. Like you don't need a
So do you think
legal
then, like,
contract.
if you use that framework, do you think that the 7-year itch applies equally to men and women because both are saying like, yeah, I made it, cool, but then like at some point they're both like, wait a second,
totally. I imagine
I
it's
think
even
women
more for
initiate
women.
more divorces than men do these days. It's
the
certainly
7-year itch might be a more woman thing than a man thing, or it's 50-50.
yeah. I mean, the root of it, I think, is that like our society has turned like hyper individualistic, and it tells everybody that you're living your life, to be your best self and live your truth, and if you're not happy, then what else matters? Like all of the messaging is around like you as this sort of like atomistic individual, like just separated from the context of like all these other social groups or institutions, right? Like marriage historically was more of like a collectivist sort of institution. It's not about you and your own. That's why like the Indian arranged marriages are very successful. Like nobody goes
Dude,
into
they
that
literally
marriage.
have like a 1% divorce rate.
It's insane.
Whereas Portugal, doesn't it have like a 70-something% divorce rate? Like 3 out of 4 people get divorced.
I think I saw that. I didn't verify it, but I know that I
did.
saw that.
And it was real.
It's crazy.
It's
yeah.
literally in the 70s.
Yeah, like if like the Indians don't go into that marriage thinking like, oh, the purpose of this is for me to be happy.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that going into an arranged marriage. It's like, oh, the purpose of this is probably to have children and to further these interests of like the family and the community, and in that context, that's like the meaning and purpose behind this, right? But I think in like Western civilization, you go and most people go into marriage to be like happier.
Yes,
in a
but
way,
they
or
also like
more
we have
fulfilled or
expectations
something.
here in the West. Like I think in like India, for example, like if you went 7 years without having sex, you'd be married still. And I think in the West, like you're not willing to put up with that. You're like, wait a second, we're unhappy. We should talk about this. Like this is not a marriage the way we thought it was a marriage anymore. You know, like we're supposed to be sexually and romantically connected. Whereas I think that in certain societies, the reason marriages are so successful is because they're viewed as life partnerships. We're together, whether we're sexual or we're having kids or we're not having kids or whatever. Like we're just signing up to be together and form a unit and a family. And I think they value family much more than they value romance. Like that is a Western ideal. Like romance is a Shakespearean ideal. I mean, there's a phenomenal video on YouTube by one of my favorite YouTube channels, Nerd Writer, who's I think a genius, and it's called Shakespeare Invented Love or something like that. Did Shakespeare invent love? Highly recommend it to everybody out there, especially our audience. They'll be like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." But that is a construct. Like love is a Western modern construct. To seek this emotion at all is not something that like most societies seek or sought at all in the first place.
Well, I got a question then. Like, if we remove love from it, let's use like Nick's example of business partners. Like, how many of those fail? Like, probably quite a few. It like that also breaks at times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I think there are a lot of parallels. Like I've learned the lesson that you should never partner with someone that you're not willing to be business partners for the rest of your life. If it doesn't pass that test, fucking skip. Hard pass. Like if you're not willing to do it for the rest of your life with them, and also like I've realized over time, like business partnerships are never, let's say you split a company 50-50, it is never exactly 50-50 in terms
There's
of the
no such
effort
thing.
or risk.
Right.
It literally goes in waves, and like you might have 2 years where like your business partner is just crushing it and you're like feeling like fuck, I feel terrible, like, or it might be flipped around where like you're doing all the work for a couple of years, and you have to be okay with that going into it. And if you are, then like I think your expectations probably meet reality more than what, you know, most people think, which is like, well, this person just fits some needs I have, so like it'll all work out, and and you know, when things are great, it does, but when things are less than great, that's when shit falls apart.
What do you guys think is the real value then of relationship? Why be with somebody rather than be alone?
Because you actually want to give them more than you get. So I had a engineer that worked for me, and he was like, he had a girlfriend for a while, and then he just dropped her out of nowhere, and I was like, bro, she was great. Like you had so much in common. Like you guys got along well. And he's like, yeah, but like a relationship should give you more than 0 plus happiness. And if it doesn't do that, then like you should cut it. Like very engineering.
So by like just like basic nature, you should only be in a position where you're gaining something.
But like,
No,
but,
I don't think so.
no, I don't
don't-
think so. But I think you should default expect to give more than you get. And hopefully there's some like fulfillment.
I can agree to
in
that
that.
framework. I think mine's much more simple, where it's like, you know, I follow this guy. It was through like you guys are like Ethereans, blockchainers. There's like this educational seminar called Kernel, which a lot of these guys have gone through that are like now CEOs of protocols or whatever. They have like a online free educational platform, and one of their first ones was just like on what is sort of like the foundational level of humanity. And it was following this guy who lived with tribes in like Africa, where like these people have nothing. They just like live in the bush or whatever. And he said like foundation of human existence is like food, water, shelter, companionship. That third one, companionship, is one that we neglect often. But that to me stood out. It's like, well, we seek that just as much as we seek water, you know, like, so to have a counterpart, if it's just as important as food, water, and shelter, then like, I think that's the reason. And
I
like,
do think companionship is beautiful. I really do.
and companionship comes in many forms, right? Like this is
Sure.
companionship, but like having
Sure, because
that.
I think the idea of marriage is what, like, we ended up talking about marriage a lot, but the question was like, what causes the 7-year itch in any relationship? And like, everyone can come up with their own version of what commitment looks like to them. For some people, it's multiple partners. For some people, it's one partner, but never getting married. For some people, it's getting married. For some people, it's having kids. Like, there's different levels to this whole companionship question. But I think the real question you're hitting at is companionship. Like, do you want to be with somebody or not? And
Yeah.
do you want to be with somebody long term or not? And I think there is tremendous value there. The least value that you gain, you know, there's a lot of people that say a relationship is the ultimate spiritual journey. If you want to learn about yourself, you get in a relationship. If you consider the relationship you have with your family, your siblings, if you have siblings, your cousins, those are the relationships that you learn the most about yourself. Why? Because our family and the people closest to us trigger us the most, and they reflect back to us the most who we are. And so we learn a lot about ourselves. And then you get into a relationship with somebody, and all of a sudden, you're doing this like spiritual work that you never thought you'd be doing. And I think a lot of people are like shocked by that at first or later. Like, I think the 7-year itch is often a shock at the spiritual work you're required to do with somebody, because they're triggering everything that you ever never wanted to face about yourself by going through the journey of overcoming and communicating through all the things that they trigger you about and the wounds that they bring up for you. I think what you end up creating is a stronger, better version of yourself. At least this is true for me. I think that relationship for me has been an incredible spiritual journey where I've had to face the facts that, like, I'm not who I thought I was. I don't want what I thought I wanted. There's a lot more to me than I ever considered. And by learning to be adaptable and learn about somebody over a longer stretch, a period of time, like, I've become a more complete version of myself. Like, and Nick was there during the early years when, like, I mean, like, Nick, you remember, like, when I was 25 years old, like, it's just funny at this point. Like, we couldn't take our hands off of each other.
Bro.
It was a different relationship, right?
Yeah, this guy was full Aborigine, just hunting every night. Like, he had his arrow sharpened, just hunting every single night. And
Wait. What?
But even when
what made you want to get married?
But even when I met Eric, I was like, we couldn't take our hands off of each other, and it was like this incredible, like passionate, like lust. But very quickly, like, I mean, to kind of start to hit it, maybe Calcium's question, like, when did I know? When did Eric know they wanted to get married? Was there a moment? I knew I wanted to marry this girl very early, like very early in the relationship. I would sit her down and tell her often in the early years, I was like, listen, I'm young. You're young. I'm 25. You're 23. Like, I want to marry you. I know I want to marry you, but I also want you to know I'm a different kind of dude. Like, you need to understand, like, who you're entering a relationship with. And she was like, yeah, you're fucking weird. I know. Like, you're a different kind of dude. And I told her, I'm like, I want you to have 100% security and confirmation that we're going to have a life together. Whether that leads to a traditional marriage or a non-traditional marriage or whatever, like, can we please just decide that together over time and not rush that? And I was like, listen, if that bothers you, then I'm not for you, because I am not a normal dude. But she decided that that was for her, and she was going to go through that journey with me. And I ended up having a traditional marriage and a traditional relationship with her. It did end up going in that direction. But I made it clear up front, like, I'm different. It might not go that way. And we evolved together. So I knew that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with this person, but it was just a gut thing for me. I think it's like they say, honestly, like they say in the movies, like, I just knew. But it was that for me.
I have a complete pivot, kind of, because, like, I went on my own little spiritual journey just there. And my idea is this. It's like, it's if you accept the premise that companionship is crucial to human existence, then the 7-year itch is just a removal of companionship. So it's like when your spouse gives you children or whatever, and then all of that energy gets directed towards that instead of you or each other, it feels like you are losing the companionship, and I think that is the problem.
I mean, people talk about how like I've heard successful marriages, people who are a lot older than us, they say we put the kids first over like our relationship over the kids, and I was like, that sounds terrible. Like,
I
what
think
do you
that's
mean?
a mistake.
You should put the kids first.
Yes, and one of the couples that I admire most said the exact opposite. They're like,
I think that's a big mistake.
Hold up. I think I just
Eric and I
misheard
talked about
everything
this
you
last
said.
night.
So
You
this
said they
successful
said they
couple
put
said
themselves
first, meaning
Oh,
like
that seems wrong.
meaning like our relationship is actually more important than
Oh,
our relationship with the
I
kids.
completely misheard you then.
Maybe you agree.
Yes.
Like we have to be
no.
okay
I
in
believe
order for us
that
to like
sure.
serve the kids.
The
best.
relationship
the
comes
relationship with
first.
mom and dad is the fulcrum, and everything orbits around that.
So we're all in
center.
agreement.
Yes.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
but that is the antithesis of how.
Wait, I don't know if I'm
But it's so
Relationships
interesting.
exist.
Eric and I went out the other night. We were like, we need to talk. We need to like sync. Like we need to like get realigned on something. And I brought it up. I was like, hey, listen, I feel like over the last 2 weeks, we've been like really focused on Rumi. And we need to like refocus on each other. And it was like a recalibration moment.
Well,
She
good
was
for
like-
you to bring
she
that
was
shit
like,
up.
whoa,
Dude,
good that it was only 2 weeks.
What I
And was
love
like,
about you is you would
listen,
say that.
like, yeah, but I am like acutely aware of it all the time because I started to feel that we started to be like a little bit hard on each other about like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? What's happening next? What's on the to-do list? And I was like, oh my God, we're being those people, those parents. Whoa, watch out. Because most of the people I look at, that's the situation they're in.
That's everyone.
That's everyone. It's everyone. Overly focused on the kid, what's next on the to-do list, and they're not connected at all whatsoever. So we like to try to maintain that, to like, hey, like our love, our connection, our needs comes first. Like the baby will survive. Like we will make sure to take care of the baby as long as we're connected. Because what happens is you end up getting into like these like small tiffs and like disputes over dumb shit if you're not aligned together and on the same team.
Same
and
team.
that can like ruin things very quickly. Yeah.
I like the same team.
Same team is everything, man.
You use it as a code word.
Same team is
You know,
everything.
guess
when
I
you
can-
start like
guess I can get
diverging, but
behind
hey,
that.
remember, same team.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we pulled people in with the trade of the decade, and we possibly drug pulled them for.
Yeah.
Dude,
No, that was phenomenal. I
That was
love
good.
this
That
kind of
was-
stuff.
that was
This is
amazing.
the real life
jab,
shit.
right hook.
This is the real, yeah, exactly. This is the real life shit. So this is definitely one that I feel like we're very immature in and would seek various perspectives. Like I know I'm new to marriage. I think Eric is new
Yeah,
to
we don't-
marriage.
we're not married, we
We're
don't have
not
kids.
married and all that. Like I will say this. The baby thing is so fascinating what it does to the relationship. Like highly recommend. Like if you like I think that the baby thing like honestly just like puts such a depth to the relationship that you would not think is possible. You would not like it exposes so many things about your partner that you would never think is possible and that you enjoy seeing so much. So like whatever that looks like for you, I think it's like definitely a nice next step, but I would put it out to the community. Like, please share what you've gone through if you're willing to share, and like what leads to success in your relationships ultimately. Because I think it's like there is no art, there is no science to this. It's 100% an art.
cool. So the TLDR of this episode is leverage Bitcoin, have babies.
Okay,
Yeah, I dig it.
I like
Alright,
that.
Cool. That would have been a better title.
Jordan, quick, change the title.
I like that.
All right, guys, that was fucking great. Speaking of relationships, we have a little brother birthday to attend to who is like hopscotching to different relationships on a daily basis. So can't wait to see him tonight.
Let's see him tonight.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
an interesting perspective.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the chat, for sticking with us and joining us the whole time. Love
Great
seeing
chat.
your comments in there. Fucking
Yes,
fire
great
this
chat.
week. If you're just listening, join us on YouTube. Either subscribe or join us Wednesdays at 5 p.m. PST. And that we will see you next week. Love you guys.
Amazing.
Bye.
Peace.